I'm married and 33 years old. My husband David and I have been married for 10 years, and we have a first-grade daughter named Betty. We're a family of 3. I've loved drawing since I was a kid, and now I work in the arts. I'm also pregnant with our second child, and each day gets harder as my belly grows. Even though David is very busy, he tries to come home early and helps with chores and taking care of our daughter. Life was good until something recently started bothering me. We live on the first floor of a high-rise apartment building. The other day, while coming back from shopping, I saw a woman moving into our building. It turned out to be Emma, a classmate from middle school. I hadn't seen her since then. When she saw me, she was surprised and asked if I lived there too. I said yes, and she told me she was moving in. Emma's face changed when she realized I was living in the same building as her. She was shocked that a high school dropout like me lived in the first-floor apartment. She seemed to take pleasure in the fact that I was on the first floor, while she was on the 35th floor. She bragged about how her apartment had great views and how she was starting her own business, using the apartment as both her home and office. She asked me about my job, and I told her I worked in art. Emma was dismissive and acted like drawing wasn't a real job. I felt hurt, so I told her that I had turned something I love into a career. Emma didn't seem impressed and suggested that I must be making very little money, like $900 a month. Just then, David and our daughter Betty came by. Emma looked them over and said something rude about David's work clothes and our income. I felt insulted and finally snapped at her, but she just kept being disrespectful and condescending. Finally, I'd had enough of Emma's rudeness. I told her she needed to apologize for what she said about my husband. Emma just laughed and asked why she should apologize. Then she noticed my pregnancy and commented that it must be tough financially with another child on the way. She questioned if we could even afford to live in our apartment. I didn't want to hear any more of Emma's nasty comments, so I grabbed David and Betty and went home. Emma called after us, inviting us to visit her on the 35th floor for a better view, but I ignored her. I couldn't stop feeling angry at Emma all day. That night, after Betty went to sleep, David asked what happened. I told him how Emma had made fun of me for dropping out of school and belittled my work. David was furious. He knew about my past and had chosen to marry me knowing who I am. We decided to avoid Emma for a while. Fortunately, we didn't run into Emma for a month, which allowed us to live peacefully. Then, one day we received an invitation to a school reunion. I was excited to catch up with my old friends, even though I was a bit worried about running into Emma again. But since I wanted to see my friends, I decided to go. The reunion was held in a hotel ballroom. As soon as I arrived, I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years. We had a great time catching up, talking about our families and careers. But then, out of nowhere, we heard Emma's voice behind us, saying something rude about being around poor people. As expected, she was still the same. Emma showed up at the reunion too, but we didn't notice her at first because we were focused on talking with our close friends. Emma was wearing heavy makeup and a flashy dress that seemed out of place. She had always been self-centered and made awkward comments back in middle school, so we weren't surprised to see she hadn't changed. We rolled our eyes when she arrived. One of my friends finally spoke up and asked Emma who she was calling poor. Emma replied, "Who else but Mary? She's a dropout, so she must be poor and lives on the first floor. I live on the 35th floor. So it's like a master-servant relationship." Emma laughed after saying this, and some friends were upset and confronted her, but she didn't seem sorry at all. Emma kept making rude comments, suggesting I should move to a cheaper apartment if I didn't want to be caught poor. She even told me to leave the reunion, since I supposedly earned only $900 a month. My friends were confused and asked if I really only made $900 a month. I explained that's just what Emma believes. Emma then interrupted and said I was only working a part-time job because of being a dropout. While she was a CEO, a male classmate spoke up and said, "Emma, don't you know Mary is a well-known artist?" Emma looked puzzled and asked, "An artist? Who cares?" I decided to clear things up with Emma. not wanting her arrogance to ruin the reunion. I told her that I had studied art in France right after middle school and didn't complete a formal program. So yes, I dropped out. Emma scoffed and said, "Studying art is just a hobby, not a real job. You're still a dropout who ran away from studying." Emma clearly didn't understand. I decided to explain more about my work. I told Emma that I had spent years training and now run an art gallery while also creating my own artwork. I have fans and have even held my own exhibitions. Some of our classmates have bought my art. After training in France, I returned to New York and started my art career, which has become successful in recent years. David and I met at one of my exhibitions, and we clicked, which led to our marriage. Even with all this, Emma still didn't seem to understand. She said, "An exhibition is just for fun. I'm clearly the winner here because I'm a CEO." I was frustrated and told her that this wasn't about winning or losing. I take my art seriously, even if she doesn't see it that way. Emma then asked why we live on the first floor if I'm making so much money. I explained that we used to live on a higher floor, but since I'm pregnant and elevators can't be slow, we moved to the first floor for convenience. Emma didn't seem to accept my explanation. My friends and even some classmates knew about my career as an artist, but Emma probably didn't consider it because she had no interest in art and looked down on me for being a dropout. I was about to share another detail when I saw David and Betty at the entrance. Betty was running towards me, with David following behind and looking a bit embarrassed. David apologized, saying he got caught up with work and brought Betty along. Emma then noticed David's sharp suit and asked why he was dressed up when he was in work clothes last time she saw him. David greeted my friends, thanking them for being kind to me and asking if there was anything they needed. Just then, the reunion organizer rushed over to thank us for providing the venue. He praised the food and drinks, saying everything was excellent. David's parents owned the hotel, and David, now the CEO, had generously offered it for free. Emma's face turned pale when she heard this. I dropped out of middle school and only have a high school diploma, which seems a bit unusual. There's a reason for it, but we live in different worlds. She had looked down on me as poor, but here I was as an artist and the wife of a CEO. Emma was shocked and asked why a dropout like me was married to someone so important while she, an elite, was still single. She seemed bitter and challenged me on how I managed it. David finally noticed Emma and said, "Oh, we've met before. Sorry for being in work clothes last time. I was helping with a neighborhood cleanup. As the owner of the high-rise, it's important to maintain good relations in the community." Emma's face went white. "Wait, you own that high-rise?" she asked. David explained that his family had been wealthy for generations, involved in hotel management and owning many properties, including the high-rise where we live. David then invited Emma to visit the penthouse, which has a great view of the Empire State Building. Emma was done again and asked why we lived on the first floor if we had a penthouse. I explained that, because I'm pregnant, we moved to the first floor for convenience, but both the penthouse and the first floor are ours. Emma was speechless and looked like she couldn't believe it. Seeing the reaction from our friends and feeling that I had ruined the reunion's atmosphere, I decided to leave with David and Betty. As we were leaving, Emma muttered something rude about a dropout being so cocky. I turned to Betty and said, "What matters most is what's inside. Never look down on people." Betty cheerfully added, "Emma, if you keep making faces like that, happiness will run away from you." Everyone laughed, and the mood of the reunion improved. Emma, now embarrassed, quickly left. The reunion continued on a positive note. I enjoyed the rest of the evening with my friends, who also had bad experiences with Emma. Betty's comment had made everyone feel better. Months went by, and we didn't see Emma at the high-rise again. One day, David came home and told me that Emma had finally moved out. She hadn't paid rent for 3 months, and we had to get a lawyer to issue an eviction notice. Emma left town quickly after that. David said Emma had left the apartment exactly as it was. Furniture and clothes were still there. She took her expensive items and computer, but left everything else behind. At first, I was suspicious, but a friend updated me on Emma's situation. It turns out she had been pretending to be successful but was actually jobless. She had some savings from her career, but couldn't keep up her lifestyle and fell behind on rent. She had no other place to go, so she left her belongings because she couldn't afford to get rid of them. I was disgusted to learn that Emma was still a burden to others. Even in her crisis, her terrible personality meant she had no friends or colleagues to help her. Now she's living in a rundown apartment and struggling with part-time jobs. She used to brag about being an elite and looked down on me as a dropout. I'm sure her pride is shattered now. I hope she learns to live a more humble and honest life. As for me, I'm happy with my life. I continue to paint, spend time with my husband and daughter, and look forward to our new baby. Our family of 3 gets along wonderfully, and I'm excited about expanding our family. I'll keep doing everything I can to protect our happiness.
I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my graduation cap for the 100th time. My hands were trembling, not from nerves about the ceremony, but from excitement about finally having my moment. After 10 years of night classes, working double shifts, and putting everyone else first, I was graduating. Me, Jessica, the girl who always stood in the shadows of her husband's success. "You look perfect," Sandra said, appearing behind me with a champagne flute, "though I still think we should have gone with the sparkly heels." I laughed, glancing down at my sensible black pumps. "These'll do just fine. I don't want to trip walking across the stage. Brandon's going to be so proud." She squeezed my shoulder. "Speaking of which, where is that workaholic husband of yours?" "Surgery ran late," I said, checking my phone again. No messages. But he promised he'd make it to the party afterward. The graduation ceremony passed in a blur of speeches and name-calling. When they announced Jessica Mitchell, I walked across that stage with my head held high, thinking about all those nights I'd spent studying after closing the diner, all those promotions I'd turned down so we could stay near Brandon's residency program. Before we continue, quick question. Where has this story found you today? Let us know your location in the comments below. Now, let's continue. The party at our house was Sandra's idea. She'd transformed our backyard into a twinkling wonderland, with fairy lights strung between trees and champagne flowing freely. Friends, family, and colleagues from both the diner and my new job at the investment firm filled the space with laughter and congratulations. "There's my graduate." Brandon's voice boomed across the yard as he finally arrived, still in his scrubs. He looked exhausted but handsome as ever, that same charm that had won me over 12 years ago, still evident in his smile. "Sorry I'm late, babe. Emergency appendectomy." I wrapped my arms around him, breathing in the familiar hospital antiseptic smell. "You're here now. That's all that matters. Actually," he pulled away, glancing nervously around the crowd, "there's something I need to tell you, something important." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. It was the same one he'd used when telling me we had to move across the country for his residency. "Can it wait?" I gestured to our guests. "We're celebrating." "No." He cut me off, raising his voice slightly. "It can't wait. I've been seeing someone." The party chatter died down. I could feel eyes turning toward us, could hear Sandra's sharp intake of breath somewhere behind me. "What?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Her name is Trinity. She's a resident at the hospital." Brandon ran a hand through his hair, a nervous tic I'd found endearing once. "We've been together for 6 months. I'm leaving you for her." The silence that followed was deafening. Someone dropped a glass, the sharp crack against the patio tiles making me flinch. 6 months, I repeated, my mind racing through all those late nights, all those emergency surgeries. While I was finishing my degree, while I was still working 60-hour weeks to pay off your student loans. "I'm sorry," he said, but his eyes weren't on me. They were fixed on something, someone, behind me. I turned to see a young woman in designer clothes, looking uncomfortable but determined. Trinity. She'd been at my graduation party the whole time. You brought her here? The words came out as a snarl. To my graduation party? I thought it would be better to be honest, Brandon said, reaching for Trinity's hand. To start fresh. Sandra appeared at my side, her arm around my shoulders. You need to leave, both of you, now. But I couldn't let him go, not like this, not after everything. 10 years, I said, my voice rising. I gave you 10 years of my life. I worked at that diner until my feet bled to put you through med school. I moved across the country, away from my family, for your career, and this is how you repay me? Jessica, he started, but I was beyond hearing excuses. Get out, I screamed, grabbing the nearest champagne glass and hurling it at his feet. The splash caught Trinity's expensive shoes, making her jump back with a yelp. As they hurried away, the party dissolved into chaos. People started gathering their things, making awkward excuses. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching my perfect night crumble around me. I've got you, Sandra whispered, holding me up as my knees threatened to buckle. Let them go. We'll figure this out. But as I watched Brandon help Trinity into his car, the car I'd helped him pick out last year, something hardened inside me. This wasn't just about a failed marriage or a public humiliation. This was about justice, about consequences. I straightened my shoulders, wiping away tears I hadn't realized were falling. You're right, Sandra. We will figure this out, but not the way Brandon expects. The fairy lights continued to twinkle overhead, mocking what should have been my triumph. But as I stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of my celebration, I made a promise to myself. This wouldn't be the end of my story. It would be the beginning. The morning after my disastrous graduation party, I sat at our shared home office, staring at Brandon's laptop. He'd left it behind in his hurry to escape with Trinity. 10 years of marriage, and he couldn't even remember to grab his computer. You should eat something, Sandra said, placing a mug of coffee beside me. She'd stayed the night, sleeping on the couch after helping me clean up the aftermath of the party. I can't, I replied, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Not until I figure out what else he's been hiding. Jessica? Sandra's voice held a warning note. Don't. I took a deep breath. Just don't. You know what's funny? He never changed his password. It's still the date we met. The laptop came to life, revealing dozens of open tabs, patient records, email chains, bank statements. My financial analyst brain kicked into gear as I started scanning the numbers. This doesn't make sense, I muttered, pulling up our joint account. He's been transferring large sums to an account I've never seen before. Sandra leaned over my shoulder. Maybe it's for the hospital? No. I shook my head, my hands shaking as I dug deeper. These transfers started 6 months ago, the same time he started seeing her. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Sandra went to answer it while I continued searching through files. Jessica? A familiar voice called out. It's Eduardo from the hospital. I need to talk to you. Eduardo, Brandon's colleague and friend, stood in our living room looking uncomfortable in his casual clothes. I'd always liked him. He was one of the few doctors who treated me like a person, not just Brandon's wife. If you're here to defend him, I started. I'm not, he cut me off. I'm here because I think you need to know something about Trinity. I gestured for him to sit down. He perched on the edge of our couch, the one Brandon and I had picked out together last spring. She's not just a resident, Eduardo said, running his hands through his hair. She's the daughter of the hospital board chairman. Brandon's been, let's say he's been climbing the ladder faster than usual since they got together. My laugh came out bitter. So he traded up. Got himself a younger model with better connections. It's more complicated than that. Eduardo glanced at Sandra, who was hovering protectively nearby. There have been rumors about missing prescription pads, about procedures being signed off without proper oversight. I've tried looking into it, but every time I get close, the investigations disappear. My hands clenched into fists. And let me guess, Trinity's father makes sure everything stays buried? Eduardo nodded. Brandon's always been ambitious, but lately, look, I probably shouldn't be here. But you were always good to me, Jessica. You deserve to know what's really going on. After Eduardo left, I returned to the laptop with renewed purpose. Every file, every email, every transaction. I combed through them all with the same attention to detail that had earned me my recent promotion. Here, I said finally, pointing to a series of transactions. Look at these payments. They're coded as consulting fees, but they're going to offshore accounts. And the dates match up with some of the procedures Eduardo mentioned. Sandra squeezed my shoulder. What are you going to do? First, I said, plugging in my USB drive. I'm going to make copies of everything. Then I'm going to find out exactly what my dear husband has been up to at that hospital. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Need my laptop for work. Dropping by to pick it up. Perfect timing, I muttered, quickly finishing the file transfer. Sandra, would you mind making yourself scarce? I need to handle this alone. 20 minutes later, Brandon walked in using his key. He looked different somehow, sharper, colder, like a mask had slipped away. Where is it? He demanded, not even bothering with hello. I gestured to the laptop on the coffee table, right where you left it, along with your integrity, apparently. He froze. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, nothing, I said, keeping my voice light. Just wondering how many prescription pads it takes to buy Trinity those designer shoes she was wearing last night. The color drained from his face. You've been going through my files? Funny thing about being a financial analyst, I said, standing up. We're really good at following money trails. And yours, Brandon? They lead to some very interesting places. He grabbed the laptop, clutching it to his chest. You don't know what you're talking about. And even if you did, no one would believe you over me. I'm a respected surgeon. For now, I replied, watching him back toward the door. But respect is such a fragile thing, isn't it? Like trust or marriage vows. After he left, I sat down heavily on the couch, my hands shaking. Sandra emerged from the kitchen, her face concerned. Are you okay? I nodded slowly, a plan already forming in my mind. I will be, but first, I need to make a call to someone named Helen Graham. According to these emails, she's been asking some very interesting questions about Brandon's department. The game was on, and this time, I wasn't playing by anyone else's rules. The hospital lobby felt different now. For years, I'd walked these halls proudly as Brandon's wife, but today I moved like a ghost, watching the staff hurry past with new eyes. Every friendly smile, every casual greeting. I wondered who else had known about Brandon and Trinity while I remained oblivious. Can I help you? The receptionist's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Yes, I'm here to see Dr. Helen Graham. Do you have an appointment? No, but I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Could you tell her it's about Dr. Brandon Mitchell and some concerning financial discrepancies? The receptionist's eyes widened slightly. She picked up her phone, speaking in hushed tones. Within minutes, a security guard appeared to escort me to Helen's office. Helen Graham wasn't what I expected. Instead of the stern administrator I'd imagined, I found a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes and a streak of silver in her dark hair. She stood as I entered, gesturing for the security guard to leave. Jessica, she said, not a question. I've been wondering when you'd show up. I placed my USB drive on her desk. I have something you might want to see. Helen's expression remained neutral as she plugged in the drive and began reviewing the files. Only the occasional tightening around her eyes betrayed her reaction to what she was seeing. How long have you known? I asked, breaking the silence. About Trinity. A few months. Helen looked up, her gaze sharp. About the other things? I've had suspicions for longer, but Brandon is protected by Trinity's father. Among others, Helen leaned back in her chair. The hospital board isn't interested in scandal, especially not with our upcoming merger. What if they didn't have a choice? I pulled out a second USB drive. This one contains copies of everything: the unauthorized prescriptions, the fraudulent billing, the offshore accounts. One click, and it all goes to every major news outlet in the city. Helen's eyebrows shot up. That's quite a nuclear option you're holding. He humiliated me at my own graduation party, I said, my voice cracking slightly. After 10 years of sacrificing everything for him. And now you want revenge. It wasn't a question. I want justice. Helen stood, walking to her window. Below, I could see Brandon's reserved parking space, his luxury car gleaming in the sunlight. Did you know, Helen said, still looking out, that I was the one who recommended Brandon for his residency here? I saw such promise in him, brilliant surgeon, natural leader, but somewhere along the way, he started believing his own hype. She turned back to face me. What exactly are you proposing? I need access to the hospital's internal audit records, I said, and any complaints that might have been buried about Brandon's department. That's highly confidential information. So is writing prescriptions for non-existent patients. A ghost of a smile crossed Helen's face. You're not what I expected, Jessica. Brandon always portrayed you as simple, the devoted wife working her way through community college. Brandon sees what he wants to see. I stood, smoothing my skirt. I'm giving you a chance to clean house quietly, Dr. Graham. Help me expose Brandon's misconduct through proper channels, or I'll do it my way. And Trinity's father, the board, they'll fight back. Let them try. I placed my business card on her desk. I didn't spend 10 years analyzing financial records for nothing. As I turned to leave, Helen called out, "Wait." She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a thick file. These are the complaints I've collected over the past year, the ones that never made it to official review. I reached for the file, but she held it back. Before you take this, understand something. Once you start down this path, there's no going back. People will get hurt, not just Brandon and Trinity, but others, innocent people who trusted him. Like I trusted him? Revenge might feel good in the moment, Jessica, but it leaves scars on everyone involved, including the person seeking it. I thought about the night of my graduation, about the look in Brandon's eyes as he chose Trinity over our decade together. Some scars are worth it. Helen handed me the file. I'll help you, but on one condition. We do this right, by the book. No leaked documents to the press, no nuclear options. Deal? I took the file, feeling its weight, the weight of decisions and consequences yet to come. Deal. As I left the hospital, my phone buzzed with a text from Sandra. Brandon's moving his things out of the house tomorrow. Want company? I looked down at the file in my hands, then back at my phone. No thanks, I've got work to do. That night, I spread Helen's documents across my dining room table, creating a web of Post-it notes and highlighter marks. Each complaint, each discrepancy, each covered-up mistake, they were all pieces of a puzzle I was finally starting to see clearly. Brandon had always said I was good at putting things together. Time to prove him right. 3 more complaints came in this morning, Helen said, sliding a manila envelope across her desk. All from nurses who worked with Brandon last year. They were too afraid to speak up before, but now, I nodded, adding the new statements to my growing file. 2 weeks had passed since our first meeting, and the evidence against Brandon was mounting faster than either of us had expected. Have you seen him? Helen asked, studying my face. Only from a distance. He's moved in with Trinity at her father's beach house. I forced a smile. Very romantic. Jessica, Helen's voice softened. Are you sure you want to continue with this? The hospital board meets next week. Once we present our findings, there's no turning back. Before I could answer, her office door burst open. Brandon stood there, his surgical scrubs wrinkled, his face flushed with anger. What the hell are you doing? He demanded, storming toward me. The nursing staff is refusing to work with me. My patients are requesting transfers. Even Eduardo won't return my calls. Helen rose from her chair. Dr. Mitchell, this is highly inappropriate. Save it, he snapped, then turned back to me. Is this your revenge? Turning my own mentor against me? Poisoning my reputation? I met his gaze steadily. Your reputation? You mean the one you built on falsified records and buried complaints? You don't understand. He lowered his voice, glancing nervously at Helen. The things I did? I had to. Do you know how competitive this field is? How hard it is to stand out? Actually, Helen interrupted, I do. I've been standing out in this field for 30 years without compromising my ethics. Brandon ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. Helen, please, you've been like a mother to me. Don't let her do this. I'm not doing anything, I said, standing up. These complaints, they're real people, Brandon. Patients who trusted you, nurses who tried to speak up. You did this to yourself. What about Trinity? He asked desperately. Her father can't protect you anymore? Helen finished. The board meeting next week isn't just about you, Brandon. It's about the entire culture of cover-ups and corruption. Your relationship with Trinity just helped us connect the dots. He turned to me, his eyes pleading. Jess, baby, please. We can work this out. I made a mistake. Don't. My voice cracked. Don't you dare try to manipulate me. Not after everything. Fine. His face hardened. You want to play hardball? Remember who I am in this town. Remember who Trinity's father is. You really think anyone will believe the bitter ex-wife over me? They'll believe the evidence, Helen said quietly. And the witnesses. How many more do you think will come forward once they know they're not alone? Brandon's pager went off, making us all jump. He checked it, swearing under his breath. This isn't over, he warned, backing toward the door. You have no idea what you're getting into. After he left, I sank back into my chair, my hands shaking. Helen poured 2 glasses of water, adding a splash of something stronger to mine. Drink, she ordered. Then we'll talk. I took a sip, feeling the burn of alcohol. He's right, you know, about Trinity's father. He won't go down without a fight. No, Helen agreed, he won't. Which is why we need to be absolutely certain about every detail before the board meeting. She paused, studying me. There's something else you should know. She pulled up an email on her computer, turning the screen so I could see. Eduardo sent this morning. He's been doing some digging of his own. Apparently, Brandon's been writing prescriptions for Trinity's father's private medical practice. Medications that never made it to actual patients. My breath caught. You mean? Drug trafficking, Helen confirmed. Clean, respectable, hidden behind a veneer of legitimate medical practice. That's why Trinity's father has been so protective. Brandon's not just dating his daughter, he's part of the operation. I felt the room spin slightly. This is bigger than I thought, more dangerous, which is why I'm giving you one last chance to walk away, Helen said gently. We have enough to stop Brandon's medical career. We could leave it at that. I thought about the night of my graduation, about all those years of sacrifice, about the patients who had suffered because of Brandon's choices. No, I said firmly. We finished this, all of it. Helen nodded, a hint of pride in her eyes. Then we'd better get back to work. The board meeting is in 6 days, and we need everything to be perfect. As we bent over the files, sorting through evidence and testimony, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. Brandon was right. I had no idea what I was getting into. But for the first time in years, I was fighting for something bigger than myself. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. "You need to see this," Sandra said, bursting into my apartment without knocking. She thrust her phone at me, displaying a local news website. The headline made my stomach drop. "Prominent surgeon alleges harassment campaign by ex-wife." I scanned the article, my hands growing cold. Brandon had given an interview, painting himself as the victim of a vengeful ex-spouse who couldn't accept the end of their marriage. He'd even managed to work in mentions of my unstable behavior at the graduation party. "That manipulative bastard," I muttered, tossing the phone aside. "He's trying to get ahead of the story before the board meeting." "There's more," Sandra said, pulling up another article. Trinity's father is quoted here, defending Brandon's exemplary record and suggesting an internal investigation into Helen's conduct. My phone rang, Helen's number flashing on the screen. "Have you seen?" she started. "The articles? Yeah, just now." I put her on speaker. "What do we do?" "Meet me at Eduardo's place in an hour," Helen said. "And Jessica, be careful. I think we're being watched." Sandra insisted on driving me to Eduardo's apartment. The whole way there, I kept checking the rearview mirror, paranoid about every car that stayed behind us for more than a few blocks. Eduardo's place was a small walk-up in a quiet neighborhood. Helen was already there when we arrived, along with 3 nurses I recognized from the hospital. "These are the witnesses who agreed to go on record," Helen explained, introducing them. "Maria, Rachel, and Diane. They've all documented instances of Brandon's misconduct." "And we're all probably going to lose our jobs," Maria said grimly. "Trinity's father has friends on every hospital board in the city." "No, you won't," I promised, though my voice shook slightly. "We have evidence of retaliation against whistleblowers. That's another federal offense." Eduardo emerged from his kitchen with coffee for everyone. "The board meeting's been moved up," he announced, "tomorrow morning instead of next week." "What?" Helen stood up. "They can't do that. We need more time to—" "They're trying to catch us unprepared," I realized. "Rush this through before we can organize our evidence properly." "It gets worse," Eduardo continued. "I overheard Trinity's father on the phone. They're planning to discredit Helen first, suggest she's been targeting Brandon out of professional jealousy." Helen laughed bitterly. "Professional jealousy? I trained him. Everything he knows about surgery, he learned from me." "They're scared," I said, spreading our evidence files across Eduardo's coffee table. "Which means we're close to something big. Maria, those prescriptions you mentioned, when exactly did they start?" We worked through the night, fueled by coffee and determination. Each piece of evidence was reviewed, each testimony practiced and refined. Around midnight, Sandra returned with takeout and fresh concerns. "Someone broke into your apartment," she said quietly, pulling me aside. "Nothing was taken, but your files were clearly searched." My hands started shaking. "Did you call the police?" "Of course. They took a report, but—" She shrugged helplessly. "Let me guess. The responding officer was friends with Trinity's father?" "This is getting dangerous, Jessica." Sandra grabbed my arm. "Maybe you should back off. Let the medical board handle it through official channels." "The medical board?" Maria scoffed from across the room. "They're as corrupt as the hospital administration. No offense, Dr. Graham." Helen waved off the apology. "She's right. The whole system is compromised. That's why we need to do this right." I walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street below. A car was parked across the road, its occupants barely visible in the darkness. As I watched, it pulled away slowly. "They're trying to intimidate us," I said, turning back to the group. "Scare us into backing down. But here's what they don't understand. I'm not doing this for revenge anymore." "You're not?" Eduardo asked. No. I picked up one of the patient complaints, a woman who'd suffered complications after Brandon rushed through her surgery. I'm doing this because it's right, because every person in this room has sacrificed something to be here to tell the truth. Helen smiled, that hint of pride back in her eyes. Then let's give them hell tomorrow. We worked for several more hours, organizing our presentation for the board. Around 3 a.m., as the others were gathering their things to leave, Helen pulled me aside. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said quietly, I want you to know something. Brandon was wrong about you. You're not just the bitter ex-wife. You're the person who finally had the courage to stand up and say, enough. I hugged her impulsively, surprising us both. Thank you for everything. As Sandra drove me home in the pre-dawn darkness, I thought about Brandon's threat in Helen's office. You have no idea what you're getting into. He was right. I hadn't known what I was getting into. But now that I was here, there was no turning back. Tomorrow would change everything, for better or worse. The hospital boardroom felt like a courtroom, with Trinity's father presiding at the head of the table like a judge. Brandon sat to his right, Trinity beside him, both wearing expressions of practiced concern. The other board members filled the remaining seats, their faces carefully neutral. Helen and I sat opposite them, our evidence spread before us like armor. The three nurses, Maria, Rachel, and Diane, waited outside, ready to testify. Eduardo had positioned himself near the door, watching everyone's reactions. Before we begin, Trinity's father said, his voice smooth as oil, I want to note for the record that this meeting was called under irregular circumstances. Irregular circumstances require irregular measures, Helen replied coolly. Shall we begin with the prescription records, or would you prefer to start with the patient complaints? Brandon shifted in his seat. I could see sweat beginning to form on his forehead. Dr. Graham, one of the board members spoke up, these are serious allegations. If they prove unfounded, the consequences to your career. They're not unfounded, I interrupted, sliding copies of our evidence across the table. Everything in these folders is documented, verified, and witnessed. Trinity's father barely glanced at the papers. Ms. Mitchell, given your personal situation with Dr. Mitchell, perhaps you should recuse yourself from these proceedings. My personal situation is exactly why I'm qualified to be here, I said, standing up. I spent 10 years watching Brandon cut corners, bend rules, and justify his actions. The only difference is now I have proof. I walked around the table, distributing more documents. These are records of prescriptions written by Brandon for non-existent patients. The medications were diverted to private clinics owned by board member families. I paused beside Trinity's father. Including yours, sir. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Trinity grabbed Brandon's arm, whispering something in his ear. This is absurd. Brandon stood up, his chair scraping back. These allegations are clearly the product of a vindictive ex-wife and a mentor who can't accept being surpassed by her student. Then you won't mind if we call in our witnesses? Helen asked. She nodded to Eduardo, who opened the door for the nurses. Maria spoke first, her voice steady as she described catching Brandon falsifying post-op reports. Rachel followed with accounts of missing medications. Diane detailed how she'd been threatened with termination when she tried to report Brandon's mistakes. Enough! Trinity's father slammed his hand on the table. This is nothing but hearsay and circumstantial evidence. Actually, Eduardo stepped forward. It's not. He pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Brandon's voice filled the room, clearly discussing prescription quantities with Trinity's father. The color drained from Brandon's face. You recorded me? Eduardo, you were my friend. I was your friend, Eduardo agreed, until I realized what you were doing to our patients. Trinity stood up suddenly. Daddy, we need to leave, now. Sit down, her father ordered, but she was already heading for the door. No, she said, turning back to face us all. I'm not going down for this. I'm not losing my medical license before I even finish my residency. Brandon reached for her. Trinity, baby, wait. Don't baby me, she snapped. You promised this would never come out. You promised my father would handle it. The board members were whispering among themselves now, papers rustling as they reviewed our evidence with new interest. Dr. Mitchell, one of them said, I think it's time you and your associates stepped out while we discuss this matter. This isn't over, Trinity's father warned as he stood. You have no idea the damage you've done. No, Helen replied calmly. The damage was done when you decided profits were more important than patients. They filed out, Brandon, Trinity, and her father, leaving us with the board. For the next 2 hours, we presented our case in detail. Every prescription, every complaint, every cover-up carefully documented and explained. When we finally emerged from the boardroom, Eduardo was waiting with news. Trinity's gone, he said, cleaned out her locker and left. Word is she's already contacted a lawyer about turning state's evidence. And Brandon? I asked. Security's escorting him out now. The board called the DEA. They're on their way. I walked to the window, watching as Brandon was led to his car. He looked up, somehow sensing my presence, and our eyes met across the distance. For a moment, I saw the man I'd married. Brilliant, ambitious, and so certain he could never fail. Then he was gone, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a hollow sort of exhaustion. Helen appeared beside me. The board suspending his license pending investigation. Trinity's father has been asked to resign. What about the nurses? Protected under whistleblower statutes. They'll keep their jobs. She touched my arm gently. You did good, Jessica. We did good, I corrected. But something tells me this isn't quite over. No, Helen agreed, watching another car pull into the parking lot. This one marked with federal badges. This is just the beginning of a much bigger storm. The DEA investigation moved faster than any of us expected. Within 2 weeks, Brandon's perfect life had completely unraveled. I watched it happen from a distance, through news reports and courthouse appearances, until the morning he showed up at my door. 5 minutes, he said, his designer suit replaced by jeans and a wrinkled shirt. Please, Jessica, that's all I'm asking for. I should have shut the door in his face. Instead, I stepped aside, letting him enter the home we'd once shared. You look terrible, I observed, noting the dark circles under his eyes and his unkempt hair. Yeah, well, being indicted for drug trafficking will do that to you. He paced our living room like a caged animal. Trinity's talking to the prosecutors. Her father's fled the country. Everything I built is just gone. Everything you stole, you mean? He stopped pacing, turning to face me. I came to ask for your help. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Are you serious? The prosecutors respect you. If you told them I was a good doctor, that I cared about my patients. But you didn't care, Brandon. That's the point. You cared about money and status and impressing Trinity's father. I cared about us, he shouted, making me flinch. Everything I did, every corner I cut, it was to give us a better life. Us? I stepped closer, anger burning away my fear. There hasn't been an us since you decided to humiliate me at my graduation party. Remember that? While I was celebrating finally getting my degree, you were planning your exit with your girlfriend. The doorbell rang, interrupting his response. Through the window, I saw Sandra and Eduardo on the porch, looking concerned. Your timing's perfect, I called out, letting them in. Brandon was just leaving. Actually, Eduardo said, his expression grim. We came to warn you. Trinity's been found dead in her apartment. The room went silent. Brandon staggered backward, collapsing onto the couch. "What?" he whispered. "How?" "Apparent overdose," Sandra said quietly. "But given everything that's happening—" "Her father," Brandon jumped up, running his hands through his hair. "He never forgave her for cooperating with the investigation. Oh God, what have I done?" I watched my ex-husband crumble, all his arrogance and charm stripped away, leaving nothing but a scared man who'd played with forces he couldn't control. "You need to go to the police," Eduardo said. "Tell them everything you know about her father's operation." "I can't," Brandon's voice cracked. "He'll kill me too." "He'll kill you anyway," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "Your only chance is to tell the truth. For once in your life, Brandon, do the right thing." He looked at me then, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. "Will you come with me? To the police station?" Part of me wanted to refuse, to let him face this alone, like he'd left me to face my humiliation alone. But a larger part remembered the young doctor I'd fallen in love with, the man who'd once wanted to help people. "Fine," I said, "but not for you, for Trinity, and for all the patients you hurt along the way." The drive to the police station was silent. Sandra followed in her car, while Eduardo called Helen to update her. In the passenger seat, Brandon stared out the window, looking lost. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he said finally. "No one ever does," I replied. "But we all make choices, Brandon, and then we have to live with them." At the station, I watched from behind a glass window as Brandon gave his statement. He told them everything, about the prescription scheme, about Trinity's father's drug operation, about the threats and cover-ups. With each word, his shoulders seemed to sink lower. Helen arrived as he was finishing, pulling me into a fierce hug. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I will be." Through the glass, I saw Brandon look up, his eyes meeting mine one last time. In that moment, I felt the last threads of our shared past finally break. "You know what the worst part is?" I said to Helen as we watched the officers lead Brandon away. "I actually feel sorry for him." "That's because you're not the person he thought you were," she replied. "You're stronger than that." Outside the station, reporters were gathering, their cameras ready for the next chapter in the scandal. Sandra touched my arm gently. "Ready to face them?" I thought about the past few weeks, about revenge and justice, about choices and consequences, about the fine line between right and wrong. "No," I said honestly. But that's never stopped me before. As we pushed through the media crowd, their questions blurring into white noise, I realized something. This wasn't the ending I'd wanted when I'd started down this path of revenge. It was messier, sadder, more complicated. But maybe that's what real justice looked like. Not a triumph, but a reckoning. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee from the hospital cafe as I sat with Helen, watching medical students hurry past with their textbooks and dreams. "The board approved your proposal," Helen said, sliding a folder across the table. "Full funding for the mentorship program. They're calling it Project Integrity." I opened the folder, scanning the official letterhead. After Brandon's conviction and Trinity's father's arrest in Monaco, the hospital had been desperate to rebuild its reputation. My idea for a program supporting ethical practices and whistleblower protection had landed on receptive ears. "Have you told Sandra yet?" Helen asked. "She's already planning the launch event." I smiled, remembering my friend's excitement. "She says we need to make it big. Show everyone that things really have changed here." Speaking of change, Helen nodded toward the hospital entrance, where Eduardo was leading a tour group of new residents. "He's doing well as chief of surgery." "Better than well?" I agreed. "The nurses actually smile during rounds now." My phone buzzed. A news alert. Brandon's sentencing had been announced. 5 years with possibility of parole. Part of his plea deal included testifying against Trinity's father's entire network. You're not reading that, are you? Helen reached across and gently pushed my phone face down. Old habits, I admitted. But you're right, that chapter's over. Ms. Mitchell? A young woman approached our table, clutching a medical textbook. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to thank you. Your testimony at the medical board hearings, it inspired me to report misconduct at my previous hospital. I recognized her then, Maria's younger sister, Rachel. How did that go? They're investigating now. She straightened her shoulders. I was scared at first, but then I thought about what you said about courage being contagious. After Rachel left, Helen raised an eyebrow. Courage is contagious? I might have gotten a bit passionate during my speech. I laughed. But it's true, isn't it? Look at what happened here. First Maria and the nurses spoke up, then Trinity, then Brandon. Then the entire corrupt system came tumbling down, Helen finished, like dominoes. Dr. Graham? Eduardo approached, his tour group hovering nearby. Would you mind speaking to our new residents about the mentorship program? Helen stood, squeezing my shoulder as she passed. Coming right up. I watched as she addressed the group, her silver hair catching the sunlight. The new residents leaned forward, hanging on her every word as she described the changes we'd implemented. Anonymous reporting systems, ethical oversight committees, support networks for staff. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Sandra. Turn on the news now. I pulled up the local news website to find Trinity's father's face splashed across the screen. He'd been found dead in his Monaco hotel room. Apparent suicide. The authorities had discovered evidence linking him to drug trafficking operations in 3 other hospitals. Everything okay? Helen had returned, noting my expression. It's really over now. I showed her the article. The last domino. She sat back down, her face thoughtful. You know, when you first came to my office with that USB drive, I thought you were just another angry ex-wife looking for revenge. I was, I admitted, but somewhere along the way, it became about something bigger. It became about justice, she corrected, about doing what's right even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. A group of nurses walked past, waving to us. Among them were Maria, Rachel, and Diane, all now supervisors in their departments, their careers flourishing in the hospital's new environment. The first class of mentees starts next week, I said, changing the subject. 20 women from different departments, all interested in healthcare administration and ethics. And you'll be leading them, Helen smiled. From bitter ex-wife to whistleblower to program director, quite a journey. I thought about that journey, about the night of my graduation party, about the anger that had driven me to investigate Brandon, about the unexpected allies I'd found along the way. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something far more meaningful. You know what's funny? I gathered my things, preparing to head to my new office. Brandon always said I was wasting my potential at that community college. Turns out, he was right about the potential part, just wrong about everything else. Helen stood with me. Ready for your first day as director? I looked around the hospital courtyard, at the medical students chasing their dreams, at the nurses walking tall with newfound confidence, at Eduardo teaching his residents about integrity as much as medicine. Actually, I smiled, I think I've been ready for this my whole life. As we walked into the hospital, I didn't see the shadows of my past anymore. Instead, I saw possibility. The possibility of change, of growth, of making a difference, not through revenge or destruction, but through building something new, something better, something that would last.
The deed transfer papers felt like ice in my hands. I stood frozen in my kitchen, staring at the partially signed document that would strip away everything I'd worked for. My name is Paige, and this was supposed to be a perfect Thanksgiving dinner. Not the day I discovered my family's betrayal. "Paige, honey, where are those serving platters you promised?" My mother's voice snapped me back to reality. I quickly shoved the papers back into the drawer, my hands trembling. "Coming, Mom," I called back, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. I grabbed the antique platters I'd collected over years of antiquing, another passion my family dismissed as frivolous. The aroma of roasting turkey filled my lovingly renovated Victorian home. I'd spent 3 years turning this historic property into a showpiece, doing most of the work myself. Every brass fixture, every restored hardwood floor, every carefully chosen paint color reflected my vision. "This place still needs work," my brother Jarrett announced, running his finger along my newly installed crown molding as I passed him with the platters. "You should have hired professionals." I bit my tongue. The professionals quoted me triple what I spent doing it myself. "That's because they know what they're doing," my father chimed in, not looking up from his phone. "Speaking of which, Jarrett just closed another $1 million deal this morning." "That's wonderful," I managed, setting down the platters with more force than necessary. A familiar ache settled in my chest, the same one I'd felt since childhood, whenever Jarrett's achievements overshadowed my existence. My Aunt Bonnie caught my eye from across the room and gave me a sympathetic smile. She'd always been different from the rest, actually seeing me for who I was. "Paige, dear," my mother called from the kitchen, "why don't you let Jarrett carve the turkey? He has such steady hands." "It's my house, Mom. I'll carve my own turkey." The words came out sharper than intended. Now, my father intervened, finally looking up. "No need to get defensive. We're just trying to help." I forced a smile and headed to the kitchen to check on the sides. As I stirred the gravy, I overheard whispered conversations from the dining room. "Papers are ready. For her own good." Jarrett knows best. My hand tightened around the wooden spoon. The deed transfer papers in my drawer suddenly made horrible sense. They weren't just planning to take my house. They'd already set the wheels in motion. "Need any help?" Bonnie appeared beside me, her voice low. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I found something," I whispered, glancing over my shoulder. "In my drawer. They're trying to—" "Dinner's getting cold," my mother announced, sweeping into the kitchen. "Paige, stop fussing with the gravy. It's fine." Throughout dinner, I watched my family with new eyes. Every compliment about my cooking came with a subtle dig. Every mention of my renovation choices carried an undercurrent of criticism. Jarrett sat at the head of my table, a position he'd simply assumed, smirking between bites of turkey. "You know," he said, swirling his wine, "this place has so much potential. The market's hot right now. A few professional upgrades, the right management." He trailed off meaningfully. My mother beamed. "You've always had such a good head for business, dear." I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Anyone want coffee? I just got a new French press." "Waste of money," my father muttered. "Regular coffee maker works fine." In the kitchen, I gripped the counter until my knuckles turned white. Through the serving window, I could see them all. My mother's satisfied smile, my father's dismissive glances, Jarrett's calculated observation of my home. My home, like it was already his. Only Bonnie looked concerned, her eyes meeting mine with worry. She knew something was wrong. She'd always known how they treated me, but this was different. This wasn't just their usual dismissal of my achievements. This was theft wrapped in family obligation. The coffee maker gurgled, and I made a decision. They thought I was naive, incapable, someone to be managed. They had no idea what I was capable of. I'd play along, serve their coffee, smile at their condescension. But I'd also find out exactly what they were planning. "Coffee's ready," I called out, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. As I arranged the cups on my grandmother's silver tray, another piece they probably planned to manage for me, I made a silent promise to myself. They wanted to play games? Fine. But they were about to learn that their supposedly helpless daughter had learned a few tricks of her own. While serving coffee, I casually placed my phone on the sideboard, voice recorder running. Years of being dismissed had taught me to document everything. Tonight, that habit would prove invaluable. "Paige, sweetheart," my mother started, stirring her coffee with practiced precision. "We've been thinking about your future." "Oh?" I kept my voice light, innocent. "What about it?" Jarrett leaned forward, all business. "You've done adequate work here, sis. But this property has serious investment potential, the kind that requires experienced management." "I've managed just fine," I said, noting how my father's eyes narrowed at my defiance. "Honey," my mother interjected, "we're just concerned. A single woman, all alone in this big house." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "I'm not alone. I have great neighbors, friends, a successful career." "A middle management position," Jarrett scoffed. "Hardly the kind of success this family is known for." My father nodded sagely. "Your brother's right. We've always been leaders, innovators. Speaking of which, Jarrett, tell them about your new development project." As Jarrett launched into another self-congratulatory monologue, I slipped away to the kitchen, ostensibly to fetch dessert. Instead, I placed another phone behind the cookie jar, recording. Then I grabbed my tablet from the counter, appearing to check a recipe while actually starting its recording function before returning it to its stand. "Pie's almost ready," I called out, buying time to position my devices. "Remember when Paige tried to start that interior design business?" I heard my mother say, her voice carrying from the dining room. "Thank goodness we talked her out of that foolishness." "Best thing we ever did," my father agreed. "She would have bankrupted herself in months." I gripped the edge of the counter, breathing deeply. That foolishness had been my dream, one they'd crushed with constant criticism and dire predictions until I'd given up. Never again. Returning with the pie, I found Jarrett examining my living room's restored fireplace. "This craftsmanship is amateur at best," he declared. "We'll need to redo all of this." "We?" I asked innocently. "The contractors I work with," he said smoothly. "They'll fix everything up once the transfer is complete." I nearly dropped the pie. They were being so blatant about it now, so confident in their control over me, that they didn't even try to hide their plans. "Transfer?" I kept my voice steady. "Don't worry about the details, dear," my mother soothed. "Jarrett will handle everything." "Like he always does," my father added proudly. Bonnie, who'd been quietly observing, spoke up. "Paige has done amazing work here. This house is her achievement." "An achievement that needs proper direction," Jarrett countered. "Face it, sis, you're out of your depth. This property deserves professional management." I served the pie with trembling hands, but not from fear, from rage. Each condescending comment, each dismissive glance, fueled my determination. "You know what?" I said, forcing a smile. "You might be right. I should learn more about property management. In fact, I've been reading up on real estate law lately." "Oh, honey," my mother laughed. "Leave that to the professionals. You focus on keeping this place tidy for now." As if I were nothing more than a caretaker in my own home. The evening wore on, and I played my part perfectly. The dutiful daughter, nodding at their wisdom, accepting their criticism. All while my devices captured every damning word. Finally, as they prepared to leave, Jarrett pulled me aside. "Don't worry, sis. I'll make sure you're taken care of when everything's settled." "That's so thoughtful," I replied, watching him search my face for any sign of suspicion and finding none. After they left, Bonnie lingered. "You're planning something," she said quietly. I hugged her tightly. "Thank you for always seeing me." "Be careful," she warned, "but give them hell." Alone at last, I collected my phones and tablet, hands steady now with purpose. Playing back the recordings, I heard their true colors in high definition, their plans to manipulate me, their disdain for my achievements, their certainty that I was too naive to stop them. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to Ethan, my mentor in real estate development. He'd been teaching me the business for months, though my family didn't know it. They thought I was taking cooking classes. "Meeting tomorrow?" I typed. "I have something you need to hear." Their mistake wasn't in underestimating me. Their mistake was in thinking I was still the compliant daughter who would roll over and accept their decisions. They had no idea what I was capable of, and they were about to find out. The next morning, I sat in Ethan's office, my recordings queued up on my laptop. His corner office overlooked the city skyline, a view earned through decades of smart real estate investments. "Play them," he said, leaning back in his chair. I hit play, and my family's voices filled the room. With each passing minute, Ethan's expression darkened. "Your mother just called you financially illiterate," he noted, shaking his head. "The same woman whose daughter I've been mentoring in property development for the past year." "Keep listening," I said grimly. Jarrett's voice came through clearly. "Once the transfer is complete, we'll leverage the property for the new development. Paige won't understand the complexities, but that's why we're handling everything." Ethan stopped the recording. "They're planning to use your house as collateral for one of your brother's projects? That's not even the worst part." I played another clip. My father's voice. "The trust fund should have gone to Jarrett in the first place. This fixes that mistake." "The trust fund?" Ethan sat up straighter. "The one your grandmother left specifically to you?" "The very same. They've been trying to access it for years, but it's ironclad until I'm 40. I pulled out the deed transfer papers I'd found. "This is their solution. If Jarrett owns my house, he controls the trust fund's collateral," Ethan finished. "Damn!" "There's more." I played the final recording, where my mother and Jarrett discussed their plans in detail. "We'll need to move quickly," Jarrett was saying, "before she realizes what's happening. I've already lined up buyers for a quick flip once we renovate." "My clever boy," my mother cooed, "always thinking ahead." Ethan's face had turned to stone. "They're not just trying to take your house. They're trying to steal your entire financial future." "I know." I pulled out another folder. "But here's what they don't know. I've been documenting everything for months. Every dismissive comment, every attempt to undermine me. And this—" I handed him a stack of papers. "This is what I've really been working on." Ethan scanned the documents, his eyes widening. "You've been buying up properties around your house? Under an LLC? 3 properties, all strategic locations." I allowed myself a small smile. "Jarrett's not the only one who can play the real estate game." "And they have no idea?" "They think I'm taking cooking classes." I laughed bitterly. Because what else would their helpless daughter be doing with her time? Ethan studied the property maps. "These locations, you're thinking what I'm thinking? Historic district development, boutique shops, high-end restaurants, the kind of project that would triple property values in the area." "Including your house." Ethan nodded appreciatively. "Which you own free and clear." "Exactly. But I need your help." I leaned forward. "I want to announce the development at the family dinner next week, the one where they're planning to spring their deed transfer plan on me. You want to beat them at their own game." Ethan's eyes sparkled. "Count me in, but we'll need to move fast. How much capital do you have access to?" I pulled out my bank statements. "Everything I've saved for the past 5 years. Plus, I've already secured preliminary funding from 3 investors." "Make that 4, Ethan said firmly. "I want in on this." We spent the next hour planning, strategizing. By the time I left his office, we had a solid plan and a presentation that would leave my family speechless. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from my mother. "Family dinner next Friday. Important matters to discuss. Wear something nice." I could almost hear the condescension in her words. Another buzz. "Jarrett has wonderful news to share." "I'm sure he does," I thought, typing back a cheerful acceptance. One more text came through, this time from Bonnie. "Just heard about Friday. You okay?" "Better than okay," I replied, "but I need your help with something." "Name it," came her immediate response. I smiled as I drove home. My family thought they had everything planned perfectly. They thought their dutiful daughter would sit quietly while they dismantled her life. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Back home, I stood in my kitchen, running my hand along the countertop I'd installed myself. Every inch of this house represented my hard work, my vision, my independence. And in 1 week, I would show them exactly what their helpless daughter was capable of. Let them plan their ambush. I had plans of my own. The week before the family dinner, I met Bonnie at a quiet cafe across town. Away from prying eyes and familiar faces, I laid out my plan. "They're going to lose their minds," Bonnie said, examining the development proposals. "Especially Jarrett. He's been trying to break into historic district development for years." "I know." I sipped my coffee. "He's been rejected 3 times by the Preservation Board, while you've been quietly building relationships with them through your renovation work," Bonnie finished, understanding dawning on her face. "You clever girl." My phone buzzed. Another text from my mother. "Jarrett's bringing his real estate lawyer on Friday, just to handle some paperwork, nothing to worry about." "Look at this!" I showed Bonnie the message. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore." "Because they think you're too naive to understand what's happening." Bonnie's face hardened. "Your mother called me yesterday, asking me to help convince you if you got difficult about their plans." "And what did you say?" "I told her I'd do whatever was best for you." Bonnie's eyes twinkled. "I just didn't specify what I thought that was." My phone rang. "Ethan." "The investors are in," he said without preamble. "All 4 signed this morning. We're fully funded." Perfect timing. I checked my watch. The Preservation Board meeting starts in an hour. "Need me there?" "No, I've got this one, but be ready for Friday." Wouldn't miss it for the world. At the Preservation Board meeting, I presented my vision for the historic district. The board members, who'd rejected Jarrett's plans for modern high-rises multiple times, nodded approvingly at my proposals for restoration-focused development. "Ms. Page," the board chairman said, "this is exactly the kind of thoughtful development we've been hoping to see. Your work on your own home shows you understand the value of preserving our architectural heritage." "Thank you, sir." I handed over the final paperwork. "With your approval, we can begin next month." "Consider it approved." He stamped the documents. "Welcome to the Historic District business community." As I left the meeting, another text arrived, from Jarrett this time. "Hope you're ready for some exciting changes, sis. Friday's going to be a big day." I forwarded it to Bonnie, who responded immediately. "The audacity! Want me to bring anything Friday?" "Just your phone," I replied. "Set to record." The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. I reviewed contracts, finalized permits, and prepared my presentation. Ethan's team created professional renderings of the development plans, showing how my properties would transform the neighborhood while preserving its historic character. Thursday night, my mother called. "Darling, I hope you're not planning to cook tomorrow. I'm having it catered." "In my house?" I kept my voice neutral. "Well, yes. We want everything to be perfect for the big announcement. Jarrett has so much planned." "I'm sure he does." I watched my computer screen as the final permits were approved online. "Don't worry, Mom. Everything will be perfect." Friday morning, I met with Ethan one last time. "The press release is ready," he said, showing me the draft. "As soon as you give the signal tomorrow, it goes live. Your family's reactions will be immortalized in real estate history." "Perfect!" I checked my presentation again. "And the investors?" "All joining by video call when you're ready. They're quite excited to meet the woman who's about to transform the historic district." I smiled, remembering Jarrett's failed attempts to woo these same investors. "One last thing. Did you get the documents I asked for?" Ethan patted his briefcase. "All here. Financial records, trust fund details, everything showing their attempts to access your money, plus records of every property deal Jarrett's botched in the last 5 years. You're the best, Ethan." "Just doing my part to support a brilliant investor." He squeezed my shoulder. "Show them who you really are." Back home, I walked through my house one last time before the evening's events. Every restored molding, every carefully chosen fixture reminded me of what I'd built and what they'd tried to take. My phone buzzed with a final text from Bonnie. "Ready to raise hell?" I looked at my dining room, set for battle rather than dinner, my laptop ready to reveal truths they never saw coming. More than ready, I texted back. Time to show them exactly who they've been underestimating. The caterers would arrive soon, followed by my family, their lawyer, and their plans to take everything I'd built. They thought they were staging an intervention. Instead, they were walking into an ambush of their own making. The caterers arrived first, transforming my dining room into what looked like a corporate lunch meeting. My mother followed, swooping in to rearrange everything they'd set up. "Darling, you look tense," she said, adjusting a flower arrangement. "Here, let me fix your hair." I stepped back. "My hair is fine, Mom." "Just trying to help you look professional." She pursed her lips. "Jarrett's bringing some important people." "I'm aware." I smoothed my blazer, tailored, expensive, and definitely not what she'd expected me to wear. "Is that his lawyer's car pulling up?" Through the window, I watched Jarrett escort a stern-looking man in an expensive suit up my walkway. My father arrived simultaneously, carrying a briefcase I'd never seen before. "Paige!" Jarrett called out as they entered. "Meet Marcus, my attorney. He's here to help with some paperwork." "Pleasure," I said, shaking his hand firmly. "I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of inviting my own attorney. She'll be joining us by video call." The room went silent. My mother's hand froze mid-arrangement. "Your attorney?" my father asked slowly. "Of course," I smiled pleasantly. "For the paperwork." Jarrett laughed, but I caught the nervous edge in it. "Sis, that's really not necessary. Marcus can handle everything." "I'm sure he can, but I prefer having my own representation." I checked my phone. "Ah, Bonnie's here." My aunt entered, giving me a quick wink as she hugged everyone hello. She positioned herself perfectly, right where she could see both my laptop screen and the entire family. "Well," my mother clapped her hands, "shall we eat first? The caterers have prepared a lovely meal." "Actually," Jarrett cut in, "we should handle business first. Marcus has another appointment." "Perfect," I said, opening my laptop. "I have some business to discuss too." My father frowned. "Paige, this is serious family business. Maybe we should—" "Oh, I know exactly how serious this is." I turned on the projector I'd set up earlier. "In fact, I've prepared a presentation." "A presentation?" My mother laughed nervously. "Honey, this isn't a business meeting." "Isn't it?" I connected my laptop to the projector. "Because I see a lawyer, paperwork, and a catered meal. Seems very businesslike to me." Jarrett stepped forward, his usual confidence wavering slightly. "Sis, we're just trying to help you make smart decisions about your property." "My property," I repeated, emphasizing each word. Interesting choice of words. Speaking of which, I pressed a button, and documents filled the screen. Would anyone like to explain these? The deed transfer papers I'd found appeared, along with emails between my family members discussing their plans. "Where did you get those?" my father demanded. "Does it matter? What matters is that while you were planning to take my house, I was planning something else entirely." I clicked again, and new documents appeared. My development plans, permits, and investor agreements. "What is this?" Jarrett stepped closer to the screen, his face paling. "This," I said calmly, "is the Historic District Restoration Project. 4 properties, 12 boutique businesses, and projected returns that would make your investors weep. Oh, and it's fully funded and approved by the Preservation Board." "That's impossible," Jarrett sputtered. "The board never approves major development in the historic district. They do when the developer has a proven track record of historical preservation." I pulled up photos of my home renovation. "Like, say, someone who spent 3 years restoring a Victorian mansion?" My mother sank into a chair. But you don't know anything about real estate development." "Actually," a new voice joined in as my laptop chimed with an incoming video call. "She knows quite a bit." Ethan's face appeared on screen, along with 3 other investors. "Hello, everyone," he said cheerfully. Hope we're not interrupting the family dinner. We just wanted to meet the woman behind the most exciting development project this district has seen in years. The look on Jarrett's face was priceless. He knew exactly who these investors were, the same ones who'd rejected his proposals multiple times. Now, I said, turning to Marcus, I believe you had some paperwork for me to sign. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we should reschedule. No need. I pulled out my own stack of documents. I have all the paperwork right here, including records of every attempt to access my trust fund without my knowledge. My father stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. We were only trying to— Take what isn't yours, Bonnie interrupted, her phone visibly recording. Maybe we should discuss that part next. The room fell silent, except for the gentle hum of the projector, displaying my triumph for all to see. And we weren't even halfway through dinner. Let's review exactly what was supposed to happen tonight, I said, clicking to the next slide. You were going to present me with transfer papers, convince me it was for my own good, and take control of my house, and by extension, my trust fund. We were protecting you, my mother protested. From what? Success? I played one of the recordings from Thanksgiving. Jarrett's voice filled the room. Once we get control, we'll leverage everything for the new development. She'll thank us later. You recorded us? My father's face reddened. That's completely legal in this state, I cut in. One-party consent. I learned that in those cooking classes I've been taking. Jarrett paced the room, his confident facade cracking. Those properties you bought, that's why the sellers wouldn't return my calls. They preferred working with someone who respected the historical value of their buildings. I nodded to Ethan on the screen. Isn't that right? Indeed, Ethan smiled. Paige's restoration work on her home impressed the entire preservation community. Her vision for the district aligned perfectly with what we've been hoping to see. My mother turned to Marcus. Can she do this? Can she just take over the district like this? The lawyer cleared his throat. Everything appears to be legally sound. The properties are purchased, the permits approved, and the funding secured. But what about her trust fund? My father demanded. We have a right. You have no rights to my trust fund, I interrupted, displaying the trust documents. Grandmother made that very clear. It's mine until I'm 40, and then it's still mine. Your only hope was to control my assets and force me to leverage the fund. How's that working out? Bonnie stifled a laugh as Jarrett slumped into a chair. The investors, he muttered. They're the same ones who rejected your proposals 3 times, I finished. Yes. Funny how they prefer historical preservation to modern high-rises. On screen, one of the investors spoke up. Ms. Paige's project is exactly what the district needs. Traditional character with modern appeal. We're expecting significant returns. But I had plans, Jarrett protested weakly. Development deals. Like these? I displayed his failed project history. 3 bankruptcies, 2 investor lawsuits, and a reputation for destroying historical properties. Did you really think I wouldn't research my own brother? My mother burst into tears. We were trying to help. You're all alone in this big house. I'm not alone, Mom. I have a successful career, loyal friends, and now? I gestured to the screen. Business partners who actually respect me. Respect? My father scoffed. You've betrayed your family. No, Bonnie stood up. You betrayed her. Every time you dismissed her achievements. Every time you praised Jarrett while ignoring her success. Every time you tried to control her life because you thought she was incapable. Marcus began gathering his papers. I don't think my services will be needed tonight. Actually, I said, stay. There's one more thing. I pulled out a final document. This is a cease and desist order. If any of you attempt to interfere with my property or business dealings again, I'll be forced to take legal action. You'd sue your own family? My mother gasped. You were about to steal from your own daughter, Bonnie pointed out. Jarrett stood suddenly. This isn't over. I have connections. Sit down. Ethan's voice cut through the room. Your connections won't help. The Preservation Board has already approved our plans. Any interference would be unwise. My father grabbed his briefcase. Come on, we're leaving. But the dinner... My mother gestured at the untouched food. I think we're done here, I said firmly. Bonnie can stay. The rest of you? I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the cease and desist. They filed out, my mother crying, my father fuming, Jarrett looking shell-shocked. Marcus followed, nodding respectfully to me as he left. After they were gone, Bonnie hugged me tight. That was magnificent. The investors on screen agreed, scheduling a meeting for next week before signing off. Ethan remained. You did good, kid, he said proudly. Want me to keep an eye on Jarrett's movements? Please, he won't take this lying down. After ending the call, Bonnie and I sat amid the elaborate catering my mother had ordered. Well, Bonnie said, lifting a wine glass, shall we toast to the new queen of historic district development? I raised my glass, feeling lighter than I had in years. To family, I said with a slight smirk, and to karma. The house felt different now, not just mine, but truly mine. No more shadows of family manipulation, no more doubt about my capabilities. They'd tried to take everything from me. Instead, they'd only succeeded in showing me exactly how strong I really was. The fallout came faster than I expected. The morning after our confrontation, my phone exploded with messages from extended family members. How could you embarrass your brother like this? My Aunt Martha wrote. Your poor mother is devastated, Cousin Rachel chimed in. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the email from Ethan. Jarrett's been making calls, meeting in my office, now. When I arrived, Ethan wasn't alone. 3 members of the Preservation Board were there, looking grim. Your brother's been busy, Ethan said, gesturing for me to sit. Tell her. The board chairman cleared his throat. Mr. Jarrett has filed a formal complaint, alleging you obtained the permits through inappropriate means. Of course he has. I pulled out my phone. Would you like to hear what he really thinks about historical preservation? I played a recording from Thanksgiving. Jarrett calling the Preservation Board outdated fossils and bragging about his plans to modernize the district, whether those history nuts like it or not. The chairman's eyebrows shot up. Well, that's illuminating. I have more, I offered, including his plans to demolish 3 Victorian buildings once he gained control. That won't be necessary, another board member said quickly. We know quality work when we see it. Your brother's complaints are noted and dismissed. After they left, Ethan showed me more of Jarrett's handiwork. He's been calling investors, trying to shake their confidence, but he didn't expect this. He pulled up an article from the city's business journal. Historic District Renaissance. Local developer leads preservation-focused revival. My phone buzzed. Bonnie. Turn on the local news. Now. Ethan flipped on his office TV, just in time to see Jarrett being interviewed outside my house. My sister's project is reckless, he was saying. She doesn't have the experience. The reporter cut him off. Sources say you attempted to seize control of her property just yesterday. Care to comment on that? Jarrett's face reddened. That's a private family matter. Is it true the Preservation Board rejected your development plans 3 times? The reporter pressed on. While approving your sister's proposal unanimously? This interview is over. Jarrett stormed off camera. That was satisfying, I said, but Ethan looked concerned. He's desperate now. Desperate people make mistakes. Right on cue, my phone rang. My father. You've destroyed your brother's reputation, he snapped without preamble. No, he did that himself. I just exposed it. He's had to withdraw from 3 development deals because of you. Investors are pulling out. Because they've finally seen who he really is? That's not my problem. Fix this, he demanded. Release a statement supporting him. Say it was all a misunderstanding. Or what? Or you'll regret it. Family can be a powerful enemy, Paige. Is that a threat, Dad? It's a reality check. You think you can survive in this business without family connections? I laughed. I already have. And unlike Jarrett, I did it honestly. You ungrateful? Goodbye, Dad. Have your lawyer contact mine if you have anything else to say. I hung up to find Ethan grinning. Your father just accidentally gave us a gift. How so? That was basically a recorded threat. Perfect for our restraining order application. My phone buzzed again. My mother this time, but with a text. We raised you better than this. Your grandmother would be ashamed. I showed Ethan the message. Would she, though? Your grandmother left you that trust fund for a reason, he reminded me. She saw something in you that your parents never did. A knock at the door interrupted us, one of our investors. Sorry to drop in, she said, but I wanted to deliver this in person. She handed me a check. We're doubling our investment. Your brother's little media stunt just proved we backed the right developer. After she left, Ethan raised an eyebrow. Still worried about family connections? No, I smiled. But I am worried about Jarrett. He won't stop. Let him try. Ethan pulled up our project plans. Every move he makes just proves why you're the better choice. Now, shall we review the construction timeline? As we worked, my phone kept buzzing with family messages, each one more desperate than the last. I turned it off. They'd had decades to see me, to appreciate me, to treat me as an equal. Instead, they'd tried to take everything I'd built. Now they were learning the hard way. The daughter they'd underestimated had become the woman they couldn't control. And I was just getting started. The grand opening of the Historic District Revival Project drew crowds beyond our expectations. Local news crews lined the streets as I cut the ribbon in front of the first completed building, a restored Victorian mansion turned boutique hotel. Ms. Page, reporters called out, how does it feel to complete Phase 1 ahead of schedule? Before I could answer, a familiar voice cut through the crowd. This is a mistake. She stole these opportunities. Jarrett pushed his way forward, looking disheveled in a wrinkled suit. My mother and father trailed behind him, trying to pull him back. Not now, my father hissed. You're making it worse. No! Jarrett shrugged them off. Everyone needs to know the truth. This was supposed to be my project. The reporters' cameras swiveled toward him, exactly what Ethan and I had anticipated might happen. Sir, one reporter asked, aren't you the developer who tried to demolish these historic buildings? The one who lost 3 investor lawsuits? Another chimed in. That's not. Jarrett stammered. Actually, I spoke up, my voice carrying clearly through the microphone. This seems like a perfect teaching moment. Success isn't about who deserves what. It's about who puts in the work, respects the community, and builds something meaningful. The crowd applauded. Bonnie, standing beside me, squeezed my hand. You think you're so clever. My mother stepped forward. But you've torn this family apart. No, Mom. You did that when you tried to steal my home and my future. We were protecting you. From what? I gestured at the restored building behind me. From success? From independence? Look around. Everything you thought I couldn't do? I did it. And I did it better than Jarrett ever could. The Preservation Board chairman approached the microphone. If I may add, Ms. Page's work has set a new standard for historical development in our city. We've already had inquiries from other districts wanting to replicate her model. Jarrett's face contorted. This isn't over. I'll appeal the permits. No, you won't. Ethan stepped forward, holding up his phone. Because while you've been making scenes, the State Historical Society just designated this entire project as a protected development zone. Any interference would be a criminal offense. My father grabbed Jarrett's arm. Come on, son, we're leaving. That's right, I said quietly. Leave, just like you left me to fend for myself all those years. The difference is, I learned how to succeed without you. As they turned to go, my mother looked back. You'll regret pushing your family away. I'm not pushing anyone away. I'm standing my ground. When you're ready to accept that, to see me for who I really am, maybe we can talk. But not until then. They disappeared into the crowd as the reporters turned back to me. Ms. Page, What's next for the historic district revival? I smiled, gesturing to the row of buildings awaiting restoration. We're just getting started. Each of these properties represents a piece of our city's history, and we're going to bring them back to life, one building at a time. The interviews continued, but I was watching my family's retreat. They'd come today expecting to witness my failure. Instead, they'd been forced to face their own. Later, at the reception in the new hotel's grand ballroom, Bonnie found me by the window. "Your grandmother would have loved this," she said, looking around at the carefully restored details. "She always said you had her spirit." "I wish she could see it." "Oh, she sees it," Bonnie smiled. "She saw it when she left you that trust fund. She knew exactly what you'd do with it." Ethan joined us, champagne in hand. "To the most successful historic restoration project this city has seen in decades." "And to family," Bonnie added, "the ones who choose to lift you up, not tear you down." I looked around the ballroom, filled with investors, community members, and supporters who'd believed in my vision. This was my real family now. "To new beginnings," I said, raising my glass, "and to standing your ground." Through the window, I could see the lights of my house in the distance. My house, my achievement, my proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about building something they said you never could. The Preservation Board chairman approached with another potential investor, eager to discuss future projects. As I turned to greet them, I felt completely at peace. My family had tried to write my story for me, but I'd taken back the pen. And this was just the first chapter.
The moment I pulled into my driveway after a grueling 2-week business trip, I knew something was wrong. My mother's prized ceramic garden gnomes dotted my front lawn like silent sentinels, and Dad's ancient Buick was parked where my recycling bins should have been. I'm Aaliyah, and at 33, I'd spent the last decade building my life exactly how I wanted it. My house, my sanctuary, was the result of countless overtime hours and careful saving. But apparently, while I was away closing the biggest deal of my career, my parents had decided to make themselves at home. Without asking, the front door creaked open before I could even grab my suitcase from the trunk. "Welcome home, sweetie." Mom's voice carried across the yard, sugary sweet as always when she wanted something. "We've been waiting for you." I froze, my hand still on my luggage. "Mom, what's going on?" She waved dismissively, already turning back inside. Come in. Your father's watching his shows in the den." The den. My home office was now the den. I dragged my suitcase inside, the wheels catching on the new welcome mat I definitely hadn't bought. The interior stopped me dead in my tracks. Family photos I'd never hung covered the walls. Mom's gaudy decorative plates lined my minimalist shelving units. The subtle sage green walls I'd carefully chosen were now an aggressive sunshine yellow. "Mom," I managed, my voice tight, "what happened to my walls?" "Oh, they were so dreary before. I knew you'd love this color once you saw it." She bustled around the kitchen, my kitchen, pulling out casserole dishes I'd never owned. "We've been here about 10 days now. Your father's retirement started earlier than expected, and our lease was up, so we thought, why not? Why not ask me first?" I set my laptop bag down carefully, counting to 10 in my head. "Ask you? Don't be silly, we're family." She laughed like I'd told a particularly amusing joke. "Family doesn't need to ask permission. Besides, we knew you'd say yes." Dad shuffled in from my office, the den, still wearing his ancient slippers. "Hey, kiddo. Your mother's made her famous pot roast." "Dad," I tried to keep my voice level, "you can't just move in without talking to me first." "Already done now, isn't it?" He shrugged, settling into my favorite reading chair. "Your mother's got everything arranged just right. You'll see, it'll be nice having us here." "Nice?" I echoed, watching Mom rearrange my carefully organized kitchen drawers. "This is my house. My space. You can't just—" "Aaliyah Franklin, don't you take that tone with us," Mom cut in, her voice sharp. "After everything we've done for you, All those years of raising you, putting you through college. I paid for college myself, I reminded her. Every penny of it, just like I paid for this house. Well, we gave you the values that made that possible, she sniffed. Now, wash up for dinner. I made your favorite dessert too, that apple pie you loved as a child. I haven't liked apple pie since I was 12. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my brother Josiah. Hey sis, heard mom and dad pulled their latest stunt. You okay? I typed back quickly. No, not okay. Call you later. Looking up, I caught Mom watching me expectantly, that familiar guilt-inducing smile on her face. The same one she'd worn when she'd borrowed my car for 3 months last year. When she'd given my savings account information to my cousin for an emergency. When she'd volunteered me to host every family gathering for the past 5 years. I need to unpack, I said, grabbing my suitcase. And shower. Long flight. But dinner will wait. I headed for the stairs, then stopped. Mom, Dad, this isn't permanent. We need to talk about this. Soon. Of course, sweetie, Mom called after me, her tone dismissive. Whatever you say. In my bedroom, the only space they hadn't invaded yet. I closed the door and leaned against it, sliding down to sit on the floor. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone again, this time to text my friend Alina. Need lawyer recommendations. ASAP. The response came quickly. Hafal. I took a deep breath and typed. Time to finally draw some boundaries. Hard ones. Downstairs, I could hear Mom humming as she continued rearranging my life without permission. But this time would be different. This time, I wasn't going to smile and accept it. This time, I was going to fight back, and they weren't going to see it coming. The next morning, I escaped to work early, desperate for some semblance of normalcy. My colleague Tyler was already at his desk, eyebrows rising as I dropped into my chair with an exhausted sigh. Rough night? He asked, sliding a coffee my way. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse. My parents have invaded my house. I took a grateful sip. Remember last year when I told you about my mom borrowing my car? The 3-month borrowing that turned into her selling it and keeping the money? Yeah, hard to forget that one. I rubbed my temples. This is worse. They've moved in, without asking, repainted my walls, rearranged everything. My mom turned my home office into my dad's den. Tyler whistled low. And you're letting them stay? I don't know what to do, I admitted. Every time I try to stand up to them, Mom pulls the after everything we've done for you card. Like what? Making you take out student loans while they bought a timeshare? Tyler's voice dripped with sarcasm. Or maybe when they borrowed your emergency fund for your cousin's pyramid scheme? Don't forget the time they volunteered my house for Uncle Robert's wedding reception, without telling me, on a Tuesday. And you had to cater it yourself, Tyler added, while taking sick days from work. My phone buzzed, another text from Mom. Honey, we need your credit card for some new curtains. The ones you have are too modern. I showed Tyler the message, and he shook his head. You know what this is, right? Financial abuse, emotional manipulation. If they were anyone but your parents, you'd have called the cops already. I know. But no buts. Tyler turned his chair to face me fully. Remember when you first started here? You were so worried about proving yourself that you let everyone dump their work on you. What did I tell you then? That being nice doesn't mean being a doormat, I recited. Exactly. And what did you do? I started saying no, set boundaries. I smiled slightly at the memory. Became the youngest project manager in company history. So why are your parents different? I stared at my coffee cup. Because every time I try to stand up to them, I remember being 10 years old, asking for new shoes because mine had holes, and Mom saying we couldn't afford it. Then watching her buy herself a new purse the next day. Jesus, Aaliyah. Yeah. I pulled out my phone again, showing him another text from last night. But I think I'm done. I texted my friend Alina for lawyer recommendations. Tyler's face lit up. Now that's the Aaliyah I know. The one who closed the Martinez deal last week. The one who doesn't take crap from anyone. Except my parents, I muttered. Not anymore, he corrected. Look, I know a good lawyer. She specializes in tenant law. Want her number? My phone buzzed again. Mom. Also, we invited the whole family for Sunday dinner. Hope you don't mind cooking. Something inside me snapped. I thought about all the times I'd given in. All the times I'd smiled through gritted teeth while they took and took and took. The college fund they'd borrowed for a vacation. The countless family events I'd been voluntold to host. The boundaries they'd steamrolled over and over again. Give me the number, I said firmly. Tyler grinned, already dialing. Hey, Sarah. Got a potential client for you. Can you squeeze her in today? 20 minutes later, I had an appointment for my lunch break. You're doing the right thing, Tyler assured me as I gathered my things to leave. They're counting on you being too nice to fight back. Time to show them they're wrong. I know, I said quietly. I just wish that they'd be actual parents. Yeah, I get it. He squeezed my shoulder. But you can't change them. You can only change how you respond to them. As I headed for the elevator, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from Josiah. Mom just called me, complaining that you're being difficult. Whatever you're planning, I've got your back, sis. For the first time since coming home to find my parents had invaded my space, I felt something other than anxiety and dread. I felt hope. And underneath that hope, something else was building. A determination that had helped me succeed in every other area of my life. It was time to apply that same determination to my family situation. Time to stop being the dutiful daughter they could walk all over. Time to be the strong, successful woman I was in every other aspect of my life. Time to take back my home. Sarah's law office was exactly what I needed. Professional, direct, and completely unsentimental about my situation. She listened to my story without the pitying looks I'd grown used to, taking notes in sharp, precise strokes. It's actually quite straightforward, she said, sliding a document across her desk. They have no lease, no rental agreement, and no legal right to be there. You can issue a formal eviction notice today. Just like that? Just like that. They'll have 30 days to vacate. She tapped her pen against the paper. Though given what you've told me, I'd recommend changing your locks immediately and installing security cameras. My stomach churned. You think they might? People get unpredictable when their safety net disappears. Even family, especially family. A knock at her office door interrupted us. Her assistant poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a Josiah here? Says he's your brother? I jumped up. Is everything okay? Josiah burst in, looking worried. Mom's on the warpath. She's talking about putting the house up for sale. She can't do that, Sarah interjected smoothly. The property is solely in Aaliyah's name. Thank God, Josiah collapsed into the chair next to mine. Sorry for barging in, but when I heard her on the phone with a realtor... Wait, she's actually trying to sell my house? My voice rose. Without even talking to me? She says it's for the best, since you're clearly not ready for home ownership. He made air quotes, rolling his eyes. You know how she gets. Sarah's pen scratched across her legal pad. This actually strengthens our case. Attempting to sell property they don't own shows clear intent to interfere with your property rights. I can't believe they'd go this far, I muttered. Really? Josiah raised an eyebrow. Remember when they tried to arrange your marriage to that guy from their church? Or when Mom accidentally canceled your college applications because she thought you should stay home? Sarah looked up sharply. Pattern of controlling behavior, noted. I'll help you serve the papers, Josiah offered. And I've got videos of Mom bragging about moving in without permission, plus screenshots of her texts about selling the house. You're really on my side with this? I asked quietly. Always have been, sis. He squeezed my hand. Someone needs to stand up to them. Might as well be us. Sarah printed out the final documents, explaining each one as I signed. Remember, once these are served, the 30-day clock starts ticking. They might try to negotiate, delay, or manipulate. Don't engage. Direct all communication through my office. That evening, Josiah and I sat in my car outside my house, our parents' cars taking up the entire driveway. The eviction notice felt heavy in my hands. Ready? Josiah asked. No, I admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. We walked in to find Mom hosting what looked like an impromptu family gathering. Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert sat on my couch while Mom showed off her new curtain selections. Oh, sweetie, Mom beamed. Perfect timing. We're planning a little renovation for the kitchen. Nothing major, just knocking down that unnecessary wall. No. My voice came out stronger than I expected. You're not renovating anything. Don't be silly, it'll look so much better. This is for you and Dad. I held out the envelope. It's an eviction notice. You have 30 days to leave. The room went silent. Mom's face cycled through shock, hurt, and anger before settling on her familiar manipulation smile. Very funny, honey. Now, about the kitchen. It's not a joke. Josiah stepped forward. She's serious, Mom. Dad looked up from his newspaper. Now, kiddo, let's not be hasty. Hasty? I laughed. You moved into my house without asking. You're trying to sell it without my permission. You're planning renovations I don't want and can't afford. This isn't hasty. This is long overdue. After everything we've done for you? Mom's voice rose. This is how you repay us? Everything you've done for me. My voice shook. Like using my college fund for your timeshare? Or selling my car and keeping the money? Or maybe you mean all the times you volunteered my house, my time, and my money without asking? Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert quietly gathered their things and slipped out. Mom stared at the envelope like it might bite her. You have 30 days, I repeated. After that, anything left behind becomes my property to dispose of as I see fit. You can't do this to us, Mom whispered. Actually, I can, and I am. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Mom, if you call another realtor about my house, my lawyer will be in touch. As Josiah and I walked out, I heard Mom burst into tears, the same theatrical sobs she'd used to manipulate us our whole lives. But for the first time, they didn't make me feel guilty. They made me feel free. Josiah and I retreated to a local diner, the kind of place Mom would never set foot in because it wasn't refined enough. The vinyl booth squeaked as we slid in, and the coffee was terrible, but it felt safer than my own home right now. Your phone's blowing up too? Josiah asked, glancing at my constantly vibrating phone. 17 missed calls from Mom, 12 from Dad, and about 30 texts from various relatives telling me what a horrible daughter I am. I turned my phone face down. You? Mom's called me 6 times to tell me I'm choosing the wrong side. Dad sent one text asking if I know what I'm doing. He stirred his coffee absently. Did I ever tell you why I moved across the country for college? I always assumed it was for the program. Nah, the program at State was actually better. He leaned back. I left because I watched what they did to you. How they'd take and you'd give and give until there was nothing left. I was terrified they'd do the same to me. Why didn't you ever say anything? Same reason you never did. Guilt. Fear. The way Mom can make you feel like the worst person in the world for having boundaries. He pulled out his phone, showing me a text. Like this gem from 10 minutes ago. Your sister is breaking your father's heart. He might not survive this stress. Dad's heart is fine, I snorted. He just had a checkup last month. Yeah, but watch. Next will come the your father's blood pressure texts. Then the he's not sleeping updates. And finally, the if anything happens to him, it's your fault, grand finale. My phone buzzed again. Alina this time. I answered on speaker. Girl, your mother just called me. Alina's voice crackled through. Wanted me to talk some sense into you. I told her I fully support your decision and she hung up on me. She's working her way through my contact list, I sighed. Did she try the heart condition story? No, she went with, we'll be homeless this time. I reminded her they have plenty of money from selling your car last year. Josiah choked on his coffee. Damn, Alina. You really said that? Someone had to. I've watched them take advantage of Aaliyah for years. Remember when they borrowed her emergency fund and gave it to that cousin for his pyramid scheme? Or when they volunteered my house for Uncle Robert's wedding? I finished. Yes, we've been cataloging their greatest hits. Speaking of hits, Josiah pulled up his phone's gallery. I've got videos of Mom bragging about moving in without permission. Want to see? The video showed Mom at some family gathering, laughing as she described how they'd surprised me. She's so focused on her career, she needs us to take care of her house properly, Video Mom said. We didn't ask because she would have said no, and really, what kind of daughter says no to her parents? Send that to Sarah, I said immediately, and any other videos you have. Already did, along with screenshots of Mom's texts about selling your house. He paused. You know this is going to get worse before it gets better, right? I know. I finally checked my messages. Oh look, right on schedule. Dad's blood pressure is apparently through the roof. Called it, Josiah grinned. Want to bet on when the not sleeping text comes? You two are handling this surprisingly well, Alina observed. Because for the first time we're not handling it alone, I realized. We've got each other, we've got you, we've got legal backup. We've got proof, Josiah added. Hard to gaslight us when we've got receipts. My phone lit up with another call, this time from Tyler. Hey, how'd it go? About as well as expected. Mom's working her way through my contact list, Dad's supposedly dying of stress, and half the family thinks I'm Satan incarnate. So, a normal Tuesday for your family? Tyler laughed. Need me to be your work alibi tomorrow? Please, I'm not ready to face them again yet. You know, Josiah said after I hung up, this is the first time I've seen you smile while talking about them. Usually you get this tight look around your eyes, like you're bracing for impact. Usually I am. I straightened up. But not anymore. I'm done being their safety net, their ATM, their free event planner, and their doormat. Speaking of doormats, Alina chimed in from the speaker, your mom apparently bought new ones for your house. Pink flamingos. I groaned. Of course she did. Add it to the list of things they've done to my house without permission. Already did. Josiah held up a notebook. We're up to 17 violations of your property rights in just 2 weeks. Sarah's gonna love this. For the first time since this all started, I felt truly confident in my decision. Looking at my brother's supportive grin and hearing Alina's fierce loyalty through the phone, I knew I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I was fighting for myself. 3 days after serving the eviction notice, I came home to find Mom had organized an intervention in my living room. Aunts, uncles, and various family friends filled my furniture, all wearing expressions of concerned disappointment. Honey, Mom started, her voice wobbling perfectly. We're all here because we're worried about you. No, I cut in, dropping my work bag. You're all here because Mom told you her version of events. Did she mention moving in without asking? Or trying to sell my house without my permission? Aunt Linda shifted uncomfortably. Nancy, you said you had permission. Of course we had permission. Mom waved dismissively. We're her parents. Being my parents doesn't give you the right to take over my life. I pulled out my phone. Josiah, you recording this? Yep. My brother emerged from the kitchen, phone held high. Got it all, including Mom's admission that she thinks being a parent means automatic permission. You're recording us? Uncle Robert sputtered. This is a private family matter. Nothing's private anymore, I said firmly. Not after Mom called my boss trying to get me fired so I'd be more dependent on family. The room went silent. Even Mom looked shocked that I knew about that. Oh yeah, Josiah added cheerfully. My friend in HR forwarded that voicemail to me. Want to hear it, everyone? Mom's very creative with her concerns about Aaliyah's mental stability. I was trying to help, Mom protested weakly. Help? I laughed. Like when you helped by selling my car? Or helping yourself to my emergency fund? Or maybe like you're helping now by trying to force me out of my own house? Dad finally spoke up from his corner. Kiddo, we just thought, that's the problem, Dad. You never think. You just go along with whatever Mom wants, even when it hurts your kids. We've given you everything. Mom's voice rose sharply. Everything we had went to giving you opportunities. Really? I pulled out Sarah's folder. Here's my college loan statements, my car payments, my mortgage documents, everything I've earned myself while you took credit for it. Aunt Linda stood up suddenly. Nancy, you told us you paid for her college. We contributed, Mom faltered. By contributing, do you mean the college fund you emptied for your timeshare? Josiah asked innocently. Because I have those bank statements too. One by one, the family members began to look uncomfortable. Uncle Robert checked his watch and muttered about needing to leave. Aunt Linda was scrolling through her phone, probably finding all the times Mom had bragged about their contributions to my success. You're turning our family against us, Mom accused, tears starting right on cue. No, Mom. Your lies are doing that all on their own. 25 days, Josiah announced cheerfully. That's how long you have to find a new place. Might want to start packing instead of organizing family ambushes. We're not leaving, Dad said firmly. This is our home now. Actually, I pulled out another document. Sarah filed a restraining order this morning. If you're not out in 25 days, the sheriff will remove you. You'd do that to your own parents? Mom's voice cracked perfectly. You tried to get me fired, I reminded her, to make me dependent on you. That's when I realized this isn't about family. It's about control. The remaining relatives were quietly gathering their things, avoiding eye contact. Mom's carefully orchestrated intervention was crumbling around her. Linda, Robert, wait! She called desperately. You can't leave. We need to show Aaliyah how unreasonable she's being. Aunt Linda paused at the door. Nancy, you lied to us. You lied about paying for her college, about having permission to move in. What else have you lied about? I never, Mom started, but Josiah was already playing a video on his phone. Mom bragging about moving in while I was away, laughing about how I couldn't stop them now. The last relatives fled, leaving just my parents, Josiah and me. 25 days, I repeated. And if anything else in this house is damaged, sold, or renovated without my permission, Sarah will add it to the civil suit. Civil suit? Dad paled. For the car you sold, the emergency fund you took, and the property damage you've already done. I headed for the stairs. I'm staying at Alina's until you leave. Josiah has cameras set up throughout the house, so don't get any ideas. We're your parents, Mom tried one last time. You can't just... Actually, I can. And I am. I grabbed my overnight bag, already packed, knowing this confrontation was coming. You taught me that family is everything, Mom. You just never expected me to realize that includes respecting myself. As Josiah and I walked out, we could hear Mom starting to cry again. But this time, there was no audience to manipulate. No one to turn against me. Just the sound of consequences finally catching up to her. The security camera notification pinged on my phone while I was at work. Mom was removing paintings from my walls, not her decorations, but my original artwork. I watched in real time as she carefully wrapped each piece. They're stealing my art now, I told Tyler, showing him the feed. Call Sarah, he said immediately. Document everything. Before I could dial, my phone rang, Dad's number. I put it on speaker. Your mother's just packing some old family heirlooms, he started without preamble. Those paintings aren't heirlooms, Dad. I painted them myself. In college. The college I paid for. Well, he hedged, your mother feels they'd be better appreciated in her care. Put her on the phone. Mom's voice came through, sickly sweet. Honey, I just think, put my paintings back, or I call the police. Right now. You wouldn't dare. I pulled up the non-emergency line on my office phone. Try me. Through the security feed, I watched Mom slowly return each painting, muttering under her breath the entire time. Tyler gave me a thumbs up. 19 days left, I reminded them before hanging up. That evening, Josiah met me at Alina's place with takeout and updates. Mom's called every realtor in town, he reported. They all turned her down after Sarah sent them warning letters. How's Dad handling it? Actually, Josiah pulled out his phone. He called me earlier. Listen. He played a voice message. Son, I know we've made mistakes. Your mother, she means well, but maybe we went too far this time. Call me back? He's cracking, Alina observed from her kitchen. Your mom's starting to lose her grip on him. My phone buzzed, another security alert. Mom was in my home office, going through my files. That's it. I dialed Sarah's number. They've gone too far. Within an hour, we were back at my house with a police escort. Mom was still in my office, papers spread across the desk. Mrs. Franklin, the officer called out. You need to step away from those documents. Mom spun around, clutching some papers. These prove Aaliyah owes us. All the money we've spent on her. Those are my private financial records, I cut in. And my work documents. You're committing several crimes right now. Officer, Dad appeared in the doorway. This is just a family disagreement. This is breaking and entering, theft, and corporate espionage, Sarah corrected, stepping forward. My client specifically revoked your access to her home office. You can't revoke our access. We live here. Illegally, the officer pointed out. You were served an eviction notice. This room was specifically marked as off-limits in that notice. Mom's face crumpled. We just wanted to prove that you've been financially supporting me? I grabbed the papers from her hands. These prove the opposite. Every loan I've paid off, every car payment, every mortgage payment, all while you were taking money from me. We're your parents, she shrieked. Everything you have is because of us. No, Josiah stepped forward. Everything she has is despite you. Dad touched Mom's arm. Nancy, maybe we should... Don't you dare take their side, she whirled on him. After everything we've sacrificed. What exactly have you sacrificed? I demanded. Name one thing you've given up for me, one thing you've actually done to help me succeed. The silence was deafening. Mrs. Franklin, the officer said quietly, you need to leave this room now. You can either respect the eviction notice and remain in the permitted areas of the house for the next 19 days, or you can be removed immediately. Your choice. Mom looked around wildly, finding no allies. Even Dad was backing away, his face troubled. Fine, she spat. Take your precious papers, but don't come crying to us when you realize family is all you have. That's exactly what I realized, I said calmly, which is why I'm protecting myself from you. After Mom stormed out, Dad lingered in the doorway. Kiddo, I never meant for things to get this far. But you let them, Dad. You always let them. He nodded slowly. I'll start packing tomorrow. And I'll make sure your mother doesn't touch anything else. After they left, Sarah helped me gather my scattered documents while the officer wrote up his report. 19 days, Alina mused, helping me reorganize my files. Want to bet they try something else before then? No bet, Josiah and I said simultaneously. But something had shifted. Dad's quiet surrender, Mom's desperate document search. They were running out of options, running out of ways to manipulate the situation, running out of time. I locked my office door, knowing they'd probably try again tomorrow. But for the first time, I wasn't worried. They were finally realizing I wasn't their safety net anymore. I was their wake-up call. 5 days before the eviction deadline, my security cameras caught Mom trying to remove my grandmother's antique mirror, the only family heirloom I actually owned, gifted directly to me in Grandma's will. "Don't you dare," I said from the doorway, making her jump. "That's not yours to take." "Your grandmother would be ashamed of you," Mom shot back, still gripping the mirror, "throwing your parents out on the street." "You have a fully paid-for condo in Florida," I reminded her, "the one you bought with my car money." "That's different. This is our home now." "No, it's not." I stepped closer. "And if you don't let go of that mirror right now, I'm calling the police. Again." Dad appeared behind me. "Nancy, leave the mirror, please." "You're taking her side again?" Mom's voice rose to that familiar pitch that usually made us all back down. "Not this time." "I'm taking the side of not getting arrested," Dad said quietly. "We've gone too far, Nancy. Way too far." "We haven't gone far enough." She yanked the mirror, sending it crashing to the floor. The shattering sound echoed through the house. 7 years of bad luck, Grandma would have said. But watching Mom's face as she realized what she'd done, I felt nothing but relief. It was over. "Officer Martinez?" I spoke into my phone. "Yes, they're destroying property again. Yes, I have it on video." Mom's face went pale. "You were on the phone this whole time?" "Ever since the security system alerted me you were touching my things. Again." Police sirens wailed in the distance. Dad sank into a chair, head in his hands. "Nancy, pack a bag. We're leaving, now." "We most certainly are not." "Yes, we are." His voice was firm for the first time in my memory. "I'm not getting arrested because you can't accept that we were wrong." "Wrong?" She laughed hysterically. "Wrong to help our daughter? Wrong to want to be close to her?" "Wrong to move in without asking," he countered. "Wrong to try selling her house. Wrong to call her boss. Wrong to steal her artwork. Wrong to go through her work documents. And very wrong to break her grandmother's mirror." Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Mom's face crumpled into her familiar tears, but no one moved to comfort her. "Mrs. Franklin," Officer Martinez said as he entered, "we meet again. Oh, destruction of property this time?" "It was an accident," she wailed. "On video," I added, holding up my phone. "Pack your bags," the officer ordered. "You're leaving tonight. Mr. Franklin, you too." "Already packing," Dad called from upstairs. Mom looked around wildly, finding no allies. But where will we go?" "Your condo in Florida," I suggested. "The one you bought with my stolen car money? Or maybe Uncle Robert's guest house? The one you volunteered me to renovate last year?" "You're enjoying this," she accused. "Enjoying hurting your own mother." "No, Mom. I'm just finally standing up to you. There's a difference." Dad came downstairs with 2 packed bags. "Nancy, let's go. We've done enough damage." "Grant, you can't seriously." "I can and I am." He turned to me. "Kiddo, I'm sorry. For everything. Not just this, but for never standing up to her before. For letting her take advantage of you all these years." "Sorry doesn't fix it, Dad." "I know." He handed me an envelope. "But maybe this will help. It's not everything we owe you, but it's a start. I sold my boat." Mom gasped. "You didn't." "I did. Should cover the car money at least." He picked up their bags. "Coming, Nancy?" She looked between us, mascara running down her face. "You'll regret this," she said finally. "Both of you. When you need us?" "We won't," Dad cut in. "That's the point. We've lost them both, Nancy. And it's our fault." Officer Martinez escorted them out. I watched through the window as they loaded their bags into their car, Mom still crying, Dad just looking tired. Josiah appeared beside me. "You okay?" "Better than okay." I opened Dad's envelope, a cashier's check for the exact amount they'd gotten for my car. I think it's really over." "Mom will try again," he warned. "Probably, but Dad won't back her up anymore, and without him enabling her, she's powerless," he finished. We watched their car pull away, Mom's face set in a familiar expression of martyred suffering. But for the first time, it didn't make me feel guilty. It made me feel free. Want help cleaning up the mirror? Josiah offered. Yeah. I turned away from the window. And then maybe we can finally start fixing everything else they broke. Starting with ourselves. The morning sun streamed through my freshly painted sage green walls as I sipped coffee in my reclaimed home office. No more den, no more invasion, just peace and the soft clicking of my laptop keys. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Your mother's trying to plan a surprise visit for Easter. Thought you should know. Thanks for the warning, I replied. But she knows the rules. No unannounced visits. I'll remind her, he wrote back. How's the house? Back to normal, finally. The doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Josiah juggling grocery bags. Ready for our first drama-free family dinner? Just us, Alina, and Tyler? I helped him with the bags. Absolutely. Dad texted you about Mom's Easter plans? Yep, not happening. He grinned. Look at you, holding those boundaries like a pro. The kitchen was exactly as I wanted it. No knockdown walls, no gaudy decorations, just clean lines and calm colors. As we prepped dinner, another text came through. Mom this time. Your father's being unreasonable about Easter. Of course you want us to visit. I'm your mother. I showed Josiah, who snorted. Want me to handle it? No, I got this. I typed, any visits need to be arranged in advance with my explicit permission. Those are the rules. If you can't respect them, you can't visit. But we're family. Yes, we are, and family respects boundaries. I muted the conversation as Alina arrived with dessert. Your mom trying the Easter guilt trip too? How'd you know? She called me earlier. I told her my apartment was too small to host her when you inevitably said no. Tyler showed up last, bearing wine and news. So, remember how your mom tried to get you fired? The board just approved your promotion to senior manager. Apparently, her calls actually made them look closer at your work record. Karma's a beautiful thing. Josiah laughed, pouring wine. We settled around my dining table. My choice of furniture, my choice of guests, my choice of evening. No guilt, no manipulation, no drama. My phone lit up with another text from Dad. Handled the Easter situation. We'll stay in Florida. Maybe in a few months when your mother's ready to actually apologize, we can discuss a proper visit. He's really changed, Josiah observed, reading over my shoulder. We all have, I replied. Speaking of change, Alina raised her glass. To Aaliyah's new backbone. To boundaries, Tyler added. To choosing our own family, Josiah finished. As we laughed and shared stories, I looked around my table. Here was my real family. The brother who stood by me, the friends who supported me, the home I'd built for myself. No guilt, no obligation, just genuine love and respect. My phone buzzed one last time. Mom again. I suppose we could call before visiting, if you insist on being so formal with your own mother. Progress. Small, grudging, but progress. We'll talk about it, I replied, when you're ready to have an honest conversation about everything that happened. I was only trying to help. Mom, boundaries. A long pause, then. Fine. We'll do it your way. I showed the exchange to Josiah, who whistled. Holy shit, she actually backed down. Because she knows she has no choice, Tyler pointed out. You've shown her you won't cave anymore. You know what the best part is? I said, refilling everyone's glasses. I don't feel guilty. At all. I used to feel guilty for just existing in a way they didn't approve of. But now? Now you're free, Alina finished. Free to have my own life, my own home, my own choices. Free to have terrible taste in wall colors, Josiah teased, dodging my playful swat. Free to choose who sits at my table, I added, looking at my chosen family. Speaking of choices, Tyler raised his glass again. To the newest senior manager at the firm. As we celebrated, I caught my reflection in the window. No tension around my eyes, no worried crease in my forehead. Just peace, confidence, strength. Mom's latest text remained unanswered on my phone. She'd learned to live with that, just as I'd learned to live without her approval. Dad was trying, Josiah was thriving, and I was finally, truly home. "Who wants dessert?" Alina asked, bringing out her famous cheesecake. "Only if you share the recipe this time," I laughed. "Family secret," she winked. "But you're family now, so maybe." Family. Not by obligation or guilt or manipulation, but by choice, by love, by respect. And that made all the difference.
I stared at my phone, watching as birthday wishes flooded Bella's social media. Not for her birthday, for mine. My sister had posted a selfie with the caption, "Happy birthday to my amazing big sis," and somehow managed to make my birthday about herself. Again. My name is Sophia, and I've spent 24 years being the backdrop to my sister's spotlight. Today was just another reminder. "Sophia, come down. We have a surprise." Mom's voice echoed up the stairs. I already knew what kind of surprise it would be, the kind that wasn't meant for me. I trudged downstairs, plastering on the smile I'd perfected over years of being the mature one. The living room was empty, except for Dad reading his newspaper on the couch. "Where's the surprise?" I asked, though I already knew better than to hope. "Oh!" Mom's eyes widened. "Right. Bella, honey, come in." My sister burst through the front door, her perfectly styled hair bouncing as she jumped up and down. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" Behind her in the driveway sat a brand new Tesla Model 3, complete with a massive red bow on the hood. "Happy graduation, sweetheart." Dad finally looked up from his paper, beaming. "You've earned it." I felt my chest tighten. That's the surprise? "Isn't it amazing?" Bella squealed, dangling the keys. "Mom, Dad, you're the best." "We're so proud of you, honey," Mom gushed, hugging Bella. "Graduating a semester early is such an achievement." I cleared my throat. "You do remember what today is, right?" Mom looked confused for a moment. "Thursday?" "It's my birthday," I said quietly. The silence that followed was deafening. "Oh!" Mom's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, Sophia, I'm so sorry. With all the excitement about Bella's graduation and the car, we'll make it up to you this weekend," Dad added quickly, not meeting my eyes. "Right," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. "Like last year's makeup dinner that never happened, or the one before that?" "Don't be dramatic," Bella rolled her eyes. "It's just a birthday. Besides, you're old enough not to need all that attention anymore." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. 4 years younger, yet somehow always the priority. Always the star. Always the one who deserved the Tesla while I drove a 10-year-old Honda with a failing transmission. "You're right, Bella," I said, surprising everyone, including myself, with my calm tone. "I am old enough to stop expecting things to change." "Sophia," Mom started, but I was already heading upstairs. "Enjoy your car," I called over my shoulder. "I have work to do." Back in my room, I opened my laptop and pulled up the business plan I'd been working on for months. My hands were shaking as I logged into my savings account, the one my family knew nothing about, the one where I'd been squirreling away every extra dollar from my day job. My phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. "Happy birthday. Still on for coffee tomorrow?" I typed back, "Yes, and I'm ready to talk about that investment opportunity you mentioned." Another buzz, this time from Alex, my mentor from the online entrepreneurship forum. "Happy birthday. Did you review those market analysis documents I sent?" I smiled, a real smile this time. "Yes, and I'm ready to move forward. Let's meet next week." Standing up, I walked to my mirror and stared at my reflection. The good daughter, the responsible one, the backdrop. Not anymore. My phone buzzed again. Probably more birthday wishes on Bella's post. I ignored it and instead opened my business email draft to Alex. Dear Alex, I've reviewed everything and I'm ready to launch. The website designs are complete, marketing strategy is set, and initial inventory is ordered. Let's schedule that meeting and make this official. Best, Sophia. My finger hovered over the send button as I heard the excited squeals from downstairs, Bella probably showing off her new car on FaceTime to her friends. Enough is enough, I whispered, and hit send. The quiet click of my bedroom door locking felt like sealing a pact with myself. In the distance, I could hear the purr of a Tesla engine starting up. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care about what was happening downstairs. I had my own engine to start. You're seriously doing this? Adrian stirred his coffee, eyes wide as I showed him my laptop screen. Like actually doing this? Already started, I said, clicking through my newly launched website. The first batch of designs is ready to go live tomorrow. We sat in our usual corner of the local coffee shop, away from the morning rush. 3 weeks had passed since my birthday, and I'd been working every spare moment on my business. But custom phone cases? Isn't that market saturated? Adrian leaned closer to examine my designs. Not like this. I pulled up my signature collection. See these? They're all hand-drawn, incorporating personal photos into abstract art. People send their favorite memories, and I turn them into something unique. Adrian whistled. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. But how are you funding this? I've saved enough for the initial inventory and website costs. Plus, I hesitated, then grinned. Alex is investing. Alex? The tech mogul Alex? The one who mentored you in that online forum? The same. We met yesterday. He loves the concept and thinks it could scale big. Adrian sat back, shaking his head. And your family has no idea? They think I'm working overtime at the design firm. I took a sip of my latte. Mom actually praised me last night for being so dedicated to my little job. Speaking of your family, Adrian nodded toward the door. Bella walked in, followed by her friend Angela. I quickly closed my laptop. Sophia? Bella spotted us. What are you doing here? Don't you have work? It's my lunch break, I said smoothly. Hi, Angela. Angela gave me a dismissive wave, already focused on her phone. Whatever, Bella shrugged. Mom wants to know if you're coming to my car photo shoot this weekend. Angela's dad is letting us use his professional studio. Can't. Working. Again? Bella pouted. Mom's going to be upset. She says you're getting antisocial. My phone buzzed. An email notification. Order number 1 confirmed. My heart skipped a beat. I have to take this, I said, standing up. Work call. Outside the coffee shop, I pulled up the order details. Someone wanted a custom case featuring their grandmother's garden transformed into an art piece. The order note read, Love the concept. Can't wait to see what you create. For sale? Adrian had followed me out. I nodded, unable to speak. This is real, Soph. You're really doing it. I am, I whispered. I really am. My phone buzzed again. Alex. Saw your first order. Remember what we discussed. Document everything. This is just the beginning. I thought back to our meeting yesterday in his sleek downtown office. Your designs are exceptional, he had said, examining my portfolio. But more importantly, you understand the emotional connection people have with their memories. That's what will set you apart. I've been invisible my whole life, I told him. I know what it's like to want something meaningful, something that proves you matter. Then let's make sure you're invisible no more. He'd signed the investment contract right there. Another buzz. Mom. Sophia, please reconsider the photo shoot. It would mean so much to your sister. I put my phone away without responding. You okay? Adrian touched my arm. Better than okay, I said. I need to get back to my little job so I can work on this order tonight. Need help? Actually, I pulled out my tablet and showed him my production schedule. I could use someone to help manage orders and customer service once this takes off. Someone I trust. Adrian's eyes lit up. Are you offering me a job? More like a partnership. 20% stake if you're interested. Are you serious? Dead serious. Alex suggested I'd need help scaling, and there's no one I trust more than you. Adrian hugged me so hard, he nearly knocked over a passing customer. Sorry, we both called out, then burst into laughter. Back at my desk at the design firm, I opened my personal email. 30 new subscribers to my website's newsletter. 5 more people following my business Instagram. My phone buzzed yet again. Bella. Mom's really upset you're not coming. Stop being so selfish. I started typing a response, then deleted it. Instead, I opened my design software and began working on Order Shik-Ho-O-1. By the time I finished, it would be a masterpiece, proof that being invisible didn't mean being powerless. As I worked, I could hear my coworkers discussing lunch plans, client meetings, weekend schedules, normal life continuing around me while I secretly built something extraordinary. Just wait, I whispered to myself, adding the final touches to my design. Just wait and see. 200 orders this month. Adrian high-fived me across our makeshift office in my bedroom. And the reviews are insane. I refreshed my business email, watching more notifications pour in. 3 months had passed since that first order, and things were moving faster than I'd imagined. Look at this one, Adrian read from his screen. I cried when I opened the package. My late husband's favorite fishing spot turned into this beautiful abstract design. It's like seeing our memories through new eyes. That's your magic, Soph. A knock at my door made us both jump. Sophia? Mom's voice. Dinner's ready. Adrian, you're welcome to join us. Thanks, Mrs. Wright, Adrian called back, quickly minimizing our order management software. I slipped my laptop under my pillow. Coming! Downstairs, Bella was already holding court at the dinner table, Angela at her side. Great. So anyway, Bella continued as we sat down, the Tesla Club is hosting this huge charity event next month, and they want me to be one of the featured drivers. That's wonderful, honey, Mom beamed. We'll need to get you a new outfit. Dad nodded absently, focused on his phone. What about you, Sophia? Angela asked with fake sweetness. Still working late at that design place? Something like that. I took a bite of pasta. She's always working. Bella rolled her eyes. It's like you don't even live here anymore. I pay rent, I reminded her. Speaking of which, here's this month's check, Dad. Dad finally looked up. Actually, about that, your mother and I were thinking it might be time for you to find your own place. Bella could use your room for her Tesla Club meetings. I nearly choked on my pasta. Adrian's fork clattered against his plate. Excuse me? Don't be dramatic, Mom waved her hand. We just think it would be good for you to have some independence. You're making decent money at your job and... When? I cut her off. Well, the club meetings start next month, so... Perfect. I stood up. I'll be out in 2 weeks. Sophia, sit down, Mom frowned. We're not finished discussing this. Actually, we are. Adrian, can you help me look at apartments tomorrow? Absolutely, he said, standing with me. Don't be ridiculous, Bella scoffed. Where are you going to find a decent place on your salary? My phone buzzed. Another order notification, then another. I'll manage, I said. Back in my room, Adrian pulled up real estate listings while I checked our sales dashboard. Holy shit, he whispered. Soph, look at this. Our monthly revenue had just crossed 6 figures. Alex was right, I said, pulling up my banking app. We're going to need a real office soon. And I know just the place. Adrian turned his screen toward me. That new development downtown, they have retail office combo units, perfect for a showroom and workspace. Another knock. Sophia? Dad this time. Can we talk? Come in. Dad entered, looking uncomfortable. Listen, about dinner, your mother didn't mean... It's fine, I cut him off. You're right. It's time for me to move out. But can you afford it? I know your job doesn't pay that much and... Dad, I met his eyes. Trust me, I can afford it. He shifted, noticing the spreadsheets on our screens. What are you two working on? Just some freelance stuff, Adrian jumped in smoothly. Extra income, you know? Dad nodded slowly. Well, good. That's good. Being responsible with money is important. After he left, Adrian let out a breath. That was close. It won't matter soon, I said, pulling up the real estate listing again. Call them. Set up a viewing for tomorrow. What about your job? The design firm? I smiled, opening my resignation letter draft. Time for that to become my freelance work instead. My phone buzzed again. Bella, Mom's crying because of you. Why do you always have to make everything difficult? Then Mom, please be reasonable, sweetie. We're just trying to help. And finally, Alex. Quarterly numbers look exceptional. Ready to take it to the next level? I looked around my room, at the walls that had witnessed years of being overshadowed, at the desk where I'd launched my escape, at the hidden laptop still processing orders. Send the real estate agent my info, I told Adrian. I'm ready. For the office? For everything. As Adrian made the call, I heard Bella's Tesla start up in the driveway, followed by Angela's loud laughter. Once, that sound would have made me feel small, invisible. Now it just made me smile. Because while they were heading to another club meeting, I was about to sign a lease on my future. And the best part? They still had no idea what was coming. And now, please welcome our next speaker at the Young Entrepreneurs Summit, the founder of Memoryscape Designs. I straightened my blazer, heart pounding as I walked onto the stage. 6 months since that forgotten birthday, and here I was, addressing a packed auditorium. Hi, I'm Sophia, I began, my voice steady despite the nerves, and I turn memories into art. From the front row, Alex gave me an encouraging nod. Adrian, manning our product display in the expo hall, had texted me a string of emoji encouragement just minutes before. The presentation flew by, our growth metrics, customer testimonials, expansion plans. The audience leaned forward when I revealed our latest numbers. Over $500,000 in revenue last quarter. Questions? The moderator opened the floor. A woman in a sharp suit stood up. Your growth is impressive. Are you considering venture capital? We're actually, I started, but a familiar voice cut me off. Oh my God, Sophia. Angela stood at the back of the room, phone already recording. Next to her, Bella's mouth hung open. Keep it professional, I reminded myself. As I was saying, we're currently in talks with several investors, but maintaining our creative integrity is crucial. More questions followed, but I barely heard them. My sister's presence was like a spotlight I hadn't asked for, exactly what I'd been avoiding these past months. After the session, I tried to slip out the back, but Bella caught up. What the actual hell? She grabbed my arm. This is what you've been hiding? You're some kind of CEO now. Founder and creative director, actually, I corrected, gently removing her hand. Excuse me, I need to get back to our booth. Does Mom know about this? Is this why you moved out so fast? Why didn't you tell us? Bella, I have investors to meet. But I'm your sister. Yes, I turned to face her. The sister who got a Tesla for my birthday. The sister who needed my room for her car club. That sister. Angela appeared, still filming. This is wild. Wait till everyone sees. If you post that, I cut in, my lawyers will have it taken down before you can count your likes. Now, if you'll excuse me. I walked away, my heels clicking against the marble floor, leaving them staring after me. At our booth, Adrian was swamped with potential buyers and investors. There she is, he called out. Sophia, meet Marcus from Silicon Valley Partners. He's very interested in our expansion plans. The rest of the day passed in a blur of business cards and handshakes. By closing time, we had 3 potential investment offers and a major retail chain wanting to discuss exclusive partnerships. Drink, Adrian suggested as we packed up. You deserve it after today. Can't. Meeting Alex for dinner to discuss the offers. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since Bella's appearance. Mom, what's this about you running a company? Call me immediately. Dad, your mother is very upset. We need to talk. Bella, you're being ridiculous. Why are you acting like this? Angela, at least let me post about your success. I'm trying to help. You know you'll have to deal with them eventually, Adrian said gently, noticing my expression. I know, but not today. At the upscale restaurant, Alex was already waiting with a bottle of champagne. To the newest rising star in tech accessories, he raised his glass, and to proving everyone wrong. They showed up today, I told him, explaining the encounter. Perfect timing, actually. Alex pulled out his tablet. Look what just went live. He showed me the article. Memoryscape, how this 24-year-old turned personal photos into $1 million business. It's trending, he smiled. Your family won't be able to ignore this one. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. Saw your presentation. Impressive work. Would love to discuss featuring you in our 30 under 30 list. Forbes. Alex, I said slowly. I may have mentioned you to some people, he winked. Success is the best revenge, but publicity makes it sweeter. Later that night, in my new apartment overlooking the city, I finally opened my family's messages. The latest was from Dad. Just saw the article. We had no idea. Can we meet? I walked to my home office, where a wall displayed our most popular designs. In the center hung my first creation, a swirling, abstract pattern based on a photo of my childhood bedroom, the one I'd been asked to vacate. My phone buzzed one last time. Bella. Mom's crying again, but this time I think they're different tears. I smiled, thinking of tomorrow's meetings, of our expansion plans, of the Forbes photo shoot being scheduled. Different tears indeed, I whispered, and turned off my phone. The cafe was my choice, neutral ground, public, and most importantly, with an easy escape route. I arrived early, ordering my usual latte, and claiming a corner table where I could see the door. Mom and Dad walked in exactly on time, looking smaller somehow. Less intimidating than I remembered. Sophia, Mom reached for a hug, but I stepped back, gesturing to the chairs. Let's sit. They exchanged glances before settling in. Dad cleared his throat. You look different, he said. Success does that, I replied, watching Mom flinch. So you wanted to meet? We saw the Forbes article, Mom began, and the television segment, and the everything. Why didn't you tell us? When should I have told you? During Bella's car photo shoot? Or maybe while you were kicking me out of my room? We weren't kicking you out, Mom protested. We were just suggesting that I wasn't worth the space I occupied, I finished. Message received. Dad leaned forward. Sweetheart, we had no idea you were capable of all this. That's the problem, isn't it? You never bothered to find out what I was capable of. The cafe door chimed. Adrian walked in, right on schedule, my backup plan if things got too intense. Is that why you're doing this? Mom asked. To punish us? No, I took a sip of my latte. I'm doing this because I'm good at it. The fact that it makes you uncomfortable is just a bonus. Your sister is devastated, Mom tried again. She feels betrayed. Bella feels upstaged, I corrected. There's a difference. Speaking of stages, Dad pulled out his phone. We saw you're speaking at the National Business Innovation Conference next month. We thought maybe. You want to come? I finished. They nodded eagerly. The same way you came to my college graduation, or my first art show, or any of my birthdays? That's not fair, Mom's voice cracked. No, it wasn't fair. But life rarely is, right? Isn't that what you always told me when Bella got everything and I got nothing? Adrian caught my eye from across the cafe, raising an eyebrow. I shook my head slightly. I had this under control. We made mistakes, Dad admitted. But we're trying now. Now that I'm successful, now that I'm in magazines and on TV, now that people know who I am. You're our daughter. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled back. I have a meeting, I stood up. My assistant will send you tickets to the conference, front row, so everyone can see you being supportive parents. Isn't that what you want? Sophia, please. Mom's eyes welled up. We love you. You love what I've become, I corrected. There's a difference. As I walked toward the door, Dad called out, Will you at least come to dinner? Your sister, she misses you. I turned back. Bella doesn't miss me. She misses being the center of attention. Tell her she can have her old spotlight back. I've built my own. Adrian fell into step beside me outside. You okay? Never better. I checked my phone. The conference organizers want to know if I need extra tickets for family. What should I tell them? Tell them yes, I smiled. Let's give my family front row seats to what they missed all these years. My phone buzzed. A text from Bella. Mom's a mess after your meeting. Why are you being so cruel? Then another. BTW. Angela's dad knows someone at Forbes. Maybe they'd want to do a story about me too. I showed Adrian the messages, laughing. Some things never change. Speaking of change, he pulled up our sales dashboard. We just hit $2 million in monthly revenue. Alex wants to discuss international expansion. I looked back through the cafe window. Mom was crying into Dad's shoulder, her coffee untouched. Schedule the meeting with Alex, I said, and book that billboard on their drive to work. The one they'll see every morning? That's the one. Let's make sure they never forget what they overlooked. Another text from Bella. Fine, be that way, but don't expect me to support your little business. I typed back, Don't worry, sis. I learned from the best how to succeed without family support. Adrian whistled. Cold. No, I watched my parents leave the cafe, shoulders slumped. Just honest. My phone buzzed one last time. Alex. Conference preparations on track. Ready to announce the expansion? I looked at the cafe, then at my office building gleaming in the distance, and finally at my parents' retreating figures. Tell them I'm ready, I replied, and make sure the photographers get my good side. Which is that? Adrian teased. The side my family never saw coming. And now, please welcome to the stage the founder and CEO of Memoryscape, speaking about revolutionizing personal tech accessories. The conference hall was packed, 3,000 people, and in the front row, exactly as planned, sat my family. Mom in her Sunday best, Dad in his only suit, and Bella, looking uncomfortable in business attire that still somehow managed to show too much skin. Thank you, I took the podium. Let me tell you about being invisible. The audience leaned in. 3 years ago, I was working at a design firm, creating other people's visions while my own gathered dust. I lived at home, paid rent for a room I was told I didn't deserve, and watched my dreams slip away. Mom shifted in her seat. Then I realized something. Being invisible doesn't mean being powerless. Sometimes it means having the perfect cover to build something extraordinary. I clicked to the first slide. My bedroom turned office from those early days. This is where Memoryscape began. Not in a Silicon Valley garage, but in a room I was told I needed to vacate for someone else's hobby. Dad coughed, looking down. Today, we're announcing our expansion into Europe and Asia. Our app launches next month, and we've partnered with 3 major phone manufacturers to offer our designs as premium options. Applause erupted. Bella's face had gone pale. But more importantly, I continued, we're launching the Memoryscape Foundation, providing grants to overlooked artists and entrepreneurs, because sometimes the most brilliant ideas come from the people nobody sees. The standing ovation was immediate. As I left the stage, Alex met me with a champagne flute. Brutal, he grinned. Brilliant, but brutal. Ms. Wright, a reporter pushed forward. Your family is here today. How do they feel about your success? I turned, camera-ready smile in place. Why don't we ask them? Mom stood frozen. Dad fumbled with his tie. But Bella, dear, predictable Bella, grabbed the moment. We're so proud, she gushed, reaching for my arm. I always knew my sister would... Actually, I stepped back. My family is experiencing my success exactly as I experienced their support, from a distance. The reporter's eyes widened. Are you saying... I'm saying some people prefer Tesla photo shoots to supporting their children's dreams. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have investors waiting. I walked away, hearing the furious scribbling of the reporter's pen. Sophia, Mom's voice called out. Please, just wait. I turned. For what? Another forgotten birthday? Another room I need to vacate? You're making a scene, Bella hissed. No, I'm making history. There's a difference. Adrian appeared with perfect timing. Sophia, the Japanese investors are ready. Your sister is trying to talk to you, Dad said firmly. And I'm trying to run a global company, I replied. Guess which one takes priority? When did you become so cold? Mom whispered. Around the same time you became so interested in my life. Funny how success changes people's perception, isn't it? Bella stepped forward. At least let me post about the expansion on my social media. I have followers who want to see your Tesla, I finished. No thanks. We have a marketing team. Ms. Wright? A young girl approached, clutching one of our phone cases. Could I get your autograph? Your story? It inspired me to start my own business. I smiled, genuinely this time. What's your name? Sarah. I was invisible too. Not anymore, I signed her case. And neither am I. Looking back at my family, I added, sometimes the best revenge is becoming everything people said you couldn't be. Revenge? Dad's voice cracked. Is that what this is? No, I straightened my jacket. This is business. The revenge was just a bonus. Adrian touched my arm. The investors? Right, I nodded. Mom, Dad, Bella, thanks for coming. The exit is clearly marked, just like my success. As I walked away, I heard Bella's voice. She's just jealous because... Shut up, Bella, Dad cut her off. Just shut up. In the meeting room, Alex was already charming the investors. Ah, here she is, the woman who turned personal photos into global art. Speaking of photos, I smiled, pulling up our new campaign. Wait until you see what's next. My phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. Billboard just went live, the one on their route home. I opened the attachment. There it was, 40 feet high, my face, my company, my success. The tagline read, sometimes the biggest dreams come from the smallest rooms. Another buzz. Mom, we get it. You've made your point. Please, can we just talk? I showed Alex the billboard photo. He laughed. Now that's what I call a statement piece. No, I replied, watching through the window as my family left the building. That's what I call justice. The annual Tech Innovation Gala was everything they said it would be. Crystal chandeliers, flowing champagne, and Silicon Valley's finest all in one room. I adjusted my designer dress, a far cry from the hand-me-downs I used to wear. Ready? Adrian appeared beside me, dapper in his tuxedo. Born ready. We entered the ballroom just as the MC announced, and our Rising Star Award goes to Sophia of Memoryscape Designs. The spotlight found me as applause erupted. I made my way to the stage, passing table after table of industry giants who were now my peers. And there, at a table near the front, my family. Mom in a dress that still had the tags on, Dad looking uncomfortable in a rented tux, and Bella, wearing white to someone else's awards ceremony. Thank you, I began, gripping the crystal award. They say success is the best revenge, but I've learned it's actually something else. Success is the best mirror. It shows people exactly what they missed, what they overlooked, what they threw away. The room fell silent. A year ago, I was told I needed to vacate my bedroom for a car club. Today, that same room's photo is on our company's billboard. Funny how life works. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. But this award isn't about revenge. It's about visibility, about showing every overlooked person that they don't need permission to shine. They just need to believe in themselves when no one else will. The applause was deafening. As I stepped down, Alex intercepted me. The acquisition offer just doubled, he whispered. They want to announce tonight. Before I could respond, Bella appeared. Nice speech, she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Very subtle. Unlike your dress, at least I earned my spotlight. Ms. Wright, a photographer called out. Family photo? No, I said firmly. No family photos. Sophia, Mom approached, mascara slightly smeared. Please, we're trying. Trying? I laughed. Now that I'm successful, now that I'm winning awards, where was this trying when I needed it? You're being ridiculous, Bella snapped. We're your family. No, I turned to face them fully. You're people who share my DNA. Adrian is family. Alex is family. They believed in me when you were too busy planning Tesla photo shoots. Dad stepped forward. We made mistakes. Mistakes? I cut him off. Let's talk about mistakes. Remember my college graduation? When you left early because Bella had a dance recital? Or my first art show when you didn't show up at all? Or every birthday that became about her somehow? The nearby tables had gone quiet, listening. Those weren't mistakes, I continued. Those were choices, and now you get to live with them. The press is watching, Bella hissed. Good, I smiled. Let them watch. Let them write about how success doesn't just change the person who achieves it, it changes everyone who ignored them on their way up. Alex appeared at my elbow. Time for the announcement? Perfect timing, I nodded. Mom, Dad, Bella, enjoy the rest of your evening. I have a $100 million acquisition to announce. Mom gasped. Dad's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. 100 million? Bella stammered. Give or take a few million, I shrugged. But don't worry, I won't need to borrow your Tesla anymore. As I walked away, I heard Bella's shrill voice. But what about me? I'm your sister. Don't I get anything? I turned back one last time. You got everything for 24 years. Now it's my turn. The rest of the night passed in a blur of congratulations and champagne toasts. The acquisition announcement made headlines within hours. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my family. Mom, please, we can fix this. Dad, we're so sorry. We didn't know. Bella, this isn't fair. I'm your sister. At least give me a job or something. I showed the messages to Adrian, who snorted. Some people never learn. No, I agreed, watching my family leave the gala early, heads down. They don't. Later, as the party wound down, Alex found me on the balcony. You know, he said carefully, revenge might feel good now, but this isn't about revenge anymore, I cut him off. This is about justice, about balance, about karma finally catching up. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Angela. OMG, just heard about the acquisition. I always believed in you. Want to get coffee? I deleted it without responding and looked out over the city lights toward the billboard with my face on it. Ready to go? Adrian asked. Almost, I smiled, raising my champagne glass toward the night sky. I just want to enjoy the view a little longer. After all, I'd earned it. The moving trucks pulled away from my parents' house as I sat in my car, watching. They'd finally sold it, the house where I'd spent 24 years being invisible. The billboard with my face still loomed overhead, a silent witness. My phone buzzed. Adrian. Sure you want to do this? On my way, I texted back. The drive to my new office building took 15 minutes. Not the downtown space we'd started in. This was different. This was the old Carter photography studio where Bella had done her Tesla photo shoot. I'd bought it last week. Mom's car was already in the parking lot. Dad's too. And there was Bella's Tesla, looking slightly less shiny these days. They're inside. Adrian met me at the door. Alex is keeping them calm. I straightened my jacket and walked into what used to be the main studio space. The room where Bella had posed with her car was now filled with framed photos, hundreds of them. Every moment they'd missed, every achievement they'd ignored, all professionally documented and displayed. What is this? Mom whispered. staring at a photo of my empty seat at my art show opening. Memory lane, I said, making them jump. Like what I do with phone cases, but bigger, more personal. These are all... Dad trailed off, looking at a photo of himself reading the newspaper, while I showed him my college acceptance letter. Moments you missed? Yes? I walked to the center of the room. But that's not why you're here. Bella stood in front of a particularly large photo, her Tesla photo shoot, but in the background you could see me through the studio window working on my first business plan. Why are we here? She asked quietly. Because it's time to end this. I pressed a button. The lights dimmed and new photos illuminated, ones they hadn't seen before. Me at the office, laughing with Adrian, speaking at conferences, helping young entrepreneurs, living, succeeding, thriving. I spent years being angry, I said, watching their faces. Years planning the perfect revenge. And I got it. The success, the money, the recognition. I made you feel as small as you made me feel. Sophia, Mom started. Let me finish. The thing about revenge is it doesn't fill the hole. It just digs new ones. I walked to a covered frame at the end of the room. So this is it. My last act of revenge. Or maybe it's forgiveness. I'm not sure there's a difference anymore. I pulled the cover off. It was a new phone case design, a collage of family photos, both good moments and bad, swirled into something beautiful and painful and real. This is our story, I said. All of it. The favoritism, the neglect, the revenge, the success. I'm releasing it as a limited edition. All proceeds go to a new foundation. What foundation? Dad asked. The Wright Family Foundation for Overlooked Artists, because sometimes the best way to heal old wounds is to prevent new ones. Bella stepped forward. Why are you doing this? Because carrying anger is exhausting. Because success means nothing if you're still fighting old battles. Because... I took a deep breath. Because you're still my family, even if we need to redefine what that means. What does it mean? Mom's voice cracked. It means no more pretending, no more perfect family photos. We're messy and broken and real. Take it or leave it. And if we take it, Dad asked, then we start over. Not as the perfect family, but as people who acknowledge their mistakes and try to do better. Bella touched the phone case design. Even me? Even you, but on equal footing this time. No pedestals, no shadows. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Bella? The Tesla Club called. They're looking for a new meeting space since the house sold. I hear there's a room available here. You'd let me use the space? Yes, because that's what family does when they're ready to do it right. Mom was crying openly now. Dad looked years older. Bella just stared at the phone case. Take your time, I said. Look at the photos. Really look at them. Then decide if you're ready for what comes next. Adrian waited by the door. You okay? No, I smiled, but I will be. My phone buzzed. Alex. New York Times wants to cover the foundation launch. Ready? I looked back at my family, still moving through the gallery of moments. The missed ones, the painful ones, and now maybe the healing ones. Tell them yes, I replied, but make sure they understand. This isn't a story about revenge anymore. What is it about? Adrian asked. Through the window I could see my billboard starting to come down, making way for something new. It's about what happens after revenge, I said. When you finally let yourself be seen, not as who they made you, but as who you chose to become.
I should have known something was wrong when Aston insisted we host the annual family reunion at our house this year. He never cared for these gatherings before, always finding excuses to work late or schedule business trips that conveniently coincided with family events. But there he was, arranging the catering and even picking out the tablecloths. My name is Sophia, and this is the story of how my husband's betrayal became his ultimate downfall. The day started perfectly, almost too perfectly. Sunshine streamed through our floor-to-ceiling windows, highlighting the elaborate spread of food on our dining room table. Family members trickled in, bearing dishes and warm hugs. My sister Addison arrived early to help, eyeing Aston suspiciously as he flitted around the house with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. "Something's off with him," she whispered, helping me arrange wine glasses. "He's never this involved." I nodded, my stomach churning. "I know." The first sign of trouble came when my cousin Annalise arrived. She wore a red dress that seemed inappropriate for a family lunch, her smile a touch too bright as she air-kissed my cheeks. "Sophia, darling, the house looks amazing as always," she gushed, but her eyes were already scanning the room for someone else. I watched as Aston's face lit up when he saw her, a micro-expression that would have been imperceptible to anyone who hadn't spent 10 years memorizing every detail of their spouse's face. My father, Leonardo, was in the middle of his usual speech about family values when Aston clinked his glass, standing up with that smug smile I'd grown to hate over the past few months. "I have an announcement to make," he said, his voice carrying across our suddenly silent dining room. 20 pairs of eyes turned to him, including mine. "I believe in honesty, and it's time for me to be honest with everyone here." My hands grew cold around my wine glass. I knew what was coming, had known it was coming for months, but that didn't make it any easier. "Annalise and I are in love," he declared, reaching for her hand across the table. "We've been seeing each other for the past year, and we've decided to be together openly. Sophia and I are getting divorced." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel everyone's eyes shift from Aston to me, waiting for the breakdown, the screaming, the tears. My mother Valentina half rose from her chair, ready to comfort me. Instead, I took a slow sip of my wine and set the glass down carefully. "Is that all?" I asked, my voice steady. Aston's triumphant smile faltered. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. "Sophia?" he started, his tone condescending. "I know this must be shocking." "Not really," I interrupted, standing up. "Though I am curious about one thing, Annalise. Did he promise you a share in the business? Because that might be a bit complicated now." Annalise's perfectly manicured hand tightened around Aston's. "What do you mean?" I smiled, reaching for my phone. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. But please, don't let me stop you two from celebrating your grand announcement. I'm sure you have plans." "Sophia," my father started, his face red with anger. But I held up my hand. "It's fine, Dad, really." I turned to address the stunned room. "I apologize to everyone for this unexpected entertainment. Please enjoy the food. I need some air." As I walked out onto our terrace, I heard chairs scraping and voices rising. Addison followed me out, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You knew," she said. "It wasn't a question." "For months," I confirmed, pulling out my phone and sending a quick text to Jesse, my lawyer. "And I've been preparing." "Preparing for what?" she asked, just as my phone buzzed with Jesse's response. I showed her the message. "All documents are ready. Operation Karma is go." "Sophia," Addison breathed, "what have you done?" I could hear Aston inside, his voice raised as he tried to maintain control of the situation that was rapidly spiraling away from his carefully orchestrated plan. Through the window, I watched as Annalise touched his arm possessively, already marking her territory. "What have I done?" I echoed, a smile playing at my lips. "I've simply made sure that Karma has an excellent lawyer, big sister. And trust me, she's about to be one hell of a bitch." The look of confusion on Addison's face slowly transformed into understanding, then admiration. Behind us, the family chaos continued to unfold, but for the first time in months, I felt perfectly calm. Aston thought he was destroying my world today. He had no idea he'd just walked right into mine. The morning after the reunion disaster, I sat in Jesse's office, watching him sort through the stack of documents I'd been collecting for months. My friend Shanice perched on the leather armchair beside me, scrolling through messages from family members still reeling from yesterday's events. 37 texts asking if you're okay, Shanice announced, shaking her head, and one very nasty one from Annalise calling you an ice queen. Should I respond to any of these? No need, I replied, focusing on Jesse as he pulled out a particular file. Let them talk. Jesse adjusted his glasses, spreading papers across his mahogany desk. Everything's in order, Sophia. The timing couldn't be better, actually. Aston signed the last transfer documents 3 days ago, thinking they were routine business paperwork. Show me again, I said, leaning forward. He pointed to Aston's signature, bold and careless at the bottom of each page. These give you controlling interest in all 3 subsidiaries. He was so busy planning his grand announcement that he didn't even read what he was signing. The memory of how I'd discovered the affair flooded back. 6 months ago, I'd noticed Aston's sudden interest in his phone, the way he'd angle it away from me while texting. One night, he'd left his laptop open and a message from Annalise popped up. Can't wait until she's out of the picture. Everything will be ours. Sophia. Shanice's voice pulled me back to the present. You okay? I'm fine, I said, straightening my spine. Just remembering the day I decided enough was enough. Jesse gathered the papers into a neat pile. Well, your preparation paid off. The business is essentially yours now. Aston's shares in the main company are worth practically nothing without controlling interest in the subsidiaries. My phone buzzed. Addison calling. I put her on speaker. Sis, you need to hear this, she said, her voice urgent. Aston just tried to access the corporate accounts. He's at the bank right now, throwing a fit because his codes don't work anymore. I checked my watch, right on schedule. Did he try calling the IT department? Oh, yes, Addison laughed. They told him they could only take instructions from the majority shareholder, you. Shanice clapped her hands in delight. Oh, this is better than those revenge movies I love. It gets better, Addison continued. Annalise is with him, and apparently she's not taking the news well. Something about promises he made about their future? Jesse held up another document. Speaking of futures, we should discuss the prenup he insisted on. The irony is beautiful. His own prenup protects your personal assets completely. He can't touch anything you've acquired independently during the marriage, including the businesses I've quietly taken control of. I finished, allowing myself a small smile. The office door opened, and Jesse's assistant poked her head in. Mr. Aston is on line 1. He sounds upset. Jesse looked at me questioningly. I nodded. He pressed the speaker button. Aston's voice filled the room, tight with barely controlled rage. Jesse, what the hell is going on? I need access to the accounts restored immediately. I'm afraid I can't help you with that, Aston, Jesse replied calmly. I represent the majority shareholders' interests now. What are you talking about? I own those companies. Actually, I spoke up, you don't. Not anymore. There was a moment of stunned silence. Sophia, you're there? What have you done? Nothing you wouldn't have done, I said, keeping my voice level. Just protecting my interests. You taught me that, remember? Always be one step ahead in business? This is ridiculous, he sputtered. I'll fight this. With what money? I interrupted. The personal accounts are frozen pending our divorce settlement, and the business accounts? Well, you know how that's going. Annalise's voice came through in the background, shrill with panic. You said everything was taken care of. You promised me. I'll call you back, Aston snapped, and the line went dead. Shanice slow clapped. That was magnificent. It's not over, Jesse warned, He'll try to fight this. Let him, I said, standing up. Everything was done legally. He signed every document voluntarily. His ego made him careless. He never thought I'd be capable of outmaneuvering him. My phone buzzed again, a text from my mother. Your father's furious about the scandal, but I'm proud of you. Come to dinner tonight? Going to face the family? Addison asked, still on speaker. I gathered my purse, feeling lighter than I had in months. Yes, it's time they understood that the quiet, agreeable Sophia they knew is gone. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I'm more than happy to be her assistant. As I left Jesse's office, I could almost hear the sound of Aston's carefully constructed world crumbling around him. It was music to my ears. My mother's house smelled like garlic and childhood memories as I walked through the front door. She was stress cooking again, a trait I'd inherited from her. The kitchen counter was already crowded with 3 different pasta dishes. Mama, I called out, are you feeding an army? She turned, wooden spoon in hand, marinara sauce dotting her apron. Sophia, come taste this sauce. Does it need more basil? Before I could answer, my father's voice boomed from his study. Is that her? Sophia, in here, now. Here we go, I muttered, squeezing my mother's hand as I passed. Dad sat behind his massive desk, looking every bit the traditional patriarch he'd always been. Close the door, he commanded. I did, then took a seat across from him, smoothing my skirt with steady hands. What you're doing, he began. It's not right, taking a man's business from him. Taking what's rightfully mine, I corrected. There's a difference. He slammed his hand on the desk. It's vindictive. This isn't how we handle family matters. Family matters? I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Like how Aston and Annalise handled things, by humiliating me in front of everyone? That's different. Why? Because he's a man? Because he's supposed to be allowed to do whatever he wants while I just smile and take it? My father's face reddened. You're acting out of anger. No, I cut in, leaning forward. I'm acting out of self-respect. Something you taught me, remember? Never let anyone make you feel small. That's what you used to say. The study door opened, and my mother walked in, wiping her hands on her apron. Leonardo, enough. Our daughter is right. Valentina, no, you listen to me, she interrupted, moving to stand behind my chair. For 10 years, we watched Aston treat our daughter like a trophy, making her doubt herself, diminishing her achievements. And now you're angry because she finally showed him who she really is? My phone buzzed, an email from Aston. I opened it, reading aloud. Sophia, we need to talk. What happened between us doesn't have to affect business. We can work something out. Please be reasonable. Ha. See? My father gestured at the phone. He's trying to be reasonable. No, I replied, typing a quick, no thank you response. He's panicking because Annalise is probably realizing he's not the wealthy catch she thought he was. My mother squeezed my shoulder. How are you really doing, sweetheart? I'm okay, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Actually, I'm meeting Jesse and his wife for dinner to go over next steps. Jesse? My father frowned. Your lawyer? More schemes? Strategy, I corrected, standing up. And protection. Aston's not going to take this lying down. As if on cue, my phone rang. Addison. Sis, she said when I answered. Heads up, Aston just left my office. He tried to convince me to talk you into being reasonable. When I refused, he implied he might have some dirt on Dad's old business dealings. My father's face went pale as he overheard. I put the phone on speaker. What exactly did he say, Addison? Something about irregular payments from the 90s. He's bluffing, right? My father stood up so quickly his chair rolled back. That bastard, he promised those records were destroyed. Dad? I turned to him. watching decades of confidence crumble into worry. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Leonardo, what records? He sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every bit his age. It was a different time. Business was done differently then. I held up my hand, speaking into the phone. Addison, I'll call you back. Ending the call, I faced my father. Tell me everything, now. 20 minutes later, I was back in my car, hands shaking as I dialed Jesse's number. Cancel dinner plans. We need to meet now. Aston's playing dirtier than we expected. What's wrong? Jesse asked. He's going after my father. Old business dealings that could cause problems. Big problems. On my way to the office, bring your father's records, everything you can find. I started the car, my mind racing. Aston wasn't just trying to save himself anymore. He was willing to destroy my entire family to do it. The game had changed, but he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I wasn't the same woman who'd silently endured his betrayals. My phone lit up with a text from my mother. Do what you need to do. Protect our family. I love you. I took a deep breath, shifted into drive, and headed toward Jesse's office. Aston wanted to play hardball? Fine. He was about to learn that karma wasn't his only problem. He had made an enemy of a woman with nothing left to lose. Jesse's office was dark except for his desk lamp when I arrived with my father's old files. Shanice had joined him, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. I've been digging, she announced without looking up. You're not going to believe what I found about Annalise. Later, I said, dropping the files on Jesse's desk. We need to handle this first. Jesse opened the first folder, scanning documents yellowed with age. His expression grew increasingly grave. This is serious, Sophia. These payment records, if they got out, my father would be ruined, I finished. I know. Shanice finally looked up from her screen. But how did Aston even know about these? A memory hit me like a thunderbolt. The fishing trips. Every summer he'd go fishing with my father. They'd drink, talk business. I grabbed my phone, dialing Addison. What's up? She answered immediately. Those fishing trips Aston took with Dad. Were you ever there when they came back? Sometimes. They'd be drunk, laughing about the good old days. Oh, God. Dad talked, didn't he? Bingo, I said, hanging up. Jesse was already organizing the documents into piles. Okay, we need to... His office door burst open. Annalise stood there, mascara streaked down her face. You bitch, she spat at me. You've ruined everything. Shanice stood up, moving between us, but I waved her off. Please enlighten me about how I ruined your perfect plan to steal my husband and my money. He was never supposed to be poor, she shrieked. This isn't what we planned. I leaned forward. We? Annalise's face went white. She stumbled backward, but Shanice was faster, closing the door behind her. Sit down, I commanded. Tell me everything. I don't have to... Actually, Jesse interrupted. You do, because right now you're an accomplice in attempted corporate theft. So sit down. She collapsed into a chair, her designer dress wrinkled, her perfect image cracking. It wasn't my idea. Start talking, I said. Marcus started it, she whispered. Marcus, the name hit me like a slap. Your ex-husband? She nodded miserably. He knew about Aston's gambling debts. Said if I could get Aston to leave you, to transfer the business assets before the divorce. The gambling debts? Jesse asked sharply. Underground poker games, high stakes. He owes a lot. My phone buzzed. A text from Aston. Last chance. Meet me tomorrow at noon. The cafe where we had our first date. Or Daddy's secrets go public. I showed the message to Jesse, who smiled for the first time that night. Perfect. He's desperate. Shanice turned her laptop around. Speaking of desperate, look what I found. emails between Marcus and Annalise, planning everything, including how to blackmail your father if things went wrong. Annalise burst into tears. I'm sorry. Marcus threatened to reveal my own secrets if I didn't help. I never wanted. Save it, I cut her off. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything about these poker games. Names, dates, amounts, everything. I can't. These people are dangerous. More dangerous than me? I asked quietly. Because right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and fraud charges. She stared at me for a long moment, then reached for her phone with trembling hands. I have pictures from when I followed him one night, the location, the people there. Jesse examined the photos. This is perfect. These games are illegal. If the authorities were to receive an anonymous tip, Aston would be ruined, Shanice finished. No, I said, standing up. First, we meet him tomorrow. Let him think he's winning. Then we destroy him completely. What about me? Annalise asked in a small voice. I looked at my cousin, this woman who'd tried to take everything from me, now broken and afraid. You're going to help us. Consider it your redemption arc. And Marcus? Oh, I smiled. He'll get exactly what he deserves. Jesse, draft up immunity paperwork for Annalise. Shanice, get those emails ready. Tomorrow at noon, we're having a very interesting coffee date. As Annalise signed the papers, Jesse quickly prepared. My phone lit up with another message, this time from my mother. Remember what I taught you about forgiveness? I typed back, yes, but first, justice. Looking at the tear-stained face of my cousin, the determined expressions of my friends, and the damning evidence spread across Jesse's desk, I felt a calm certainty settle over me. Tomorrow, Aston would learn that karma wasn't just a bitch. She was a carefully orchestrated symphony of consequences, and I was conducting every note. The cafe looked exactly the same as it had 12 years ago, when Aston first asked me out. The same vintage posters on exposed brick walls, the same mismatched chairs, the same rich coffee aroma. But I was different. I chose a corner table with a clear view of both exits. Shanice sat at the counter, pretending to work on her laptop. Jesse and Addison waited in a car across the street. Everything was in place. Aston walked in at exactly noon, wearing his favorite power suit, the one he wore when he wanted to intimidate people. He slid into the chair across from me, that familiar smug smile playing on his lips. You're looking well, he said, as if we were meeting for a casual catch-up. Cut the small talk, I replied. You threatened my father. He leaned back, adjusting his gold cufflinks, a gift from my father last Christmas. Business is business, darling. You forced my hand. Like you forced Annalise's hand? His smile faltered for a split second. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone, playing a recording. Annalise's voice, tearful but clear, detailing the scheme with Marcus, the gambling debts, everything. The color drained from his face. You're bluffing. Am I? I slid an envelope across the table. These are copies of your IOUs from the poker games. Quite a sum you've racked up. I wonder what the gaming commission would think. You wouldn't dare, he hissed, but his hands shook as he opened the envelope. Try me. Oh, and before you think about those documents about my father, I pulled out another envelope. Turns out the statute of limitations expired 3 years ago. But your gambling debts, those are very current. He gripped the table's edge. What do you want? Sign these. I produced a stack of papers. Full divorce settlement. You walk away with your personal assets. What's left of them? No alimony, no claims on the business. And if I don't? Then in about, I checked my watch, 30 minutes, an anonymous tip about illegal high-stakes poker games reaches the authorities. With proof. His face contorted with rage. You vindictive? Careful? I interrupted. Think very carefully about your next words. The cafe door chimed. Annalise walked in, followed by Marcus, right on schedule. "What is this?" Aston demanded, half rising. "Sit down," Marcus ordered, his voice low. "We need to talk about the money you owe me." Aston's face went from red to white. "You told her?" "She told me everything," I said. "How you borrowed money from Marcus to cover your gambling debts. How you promised him a piece of the business once you married Annalise and took control. One problem, though, it was never your business to give away." "You set me up," Annalise said, tears in her eyes. "Used me to get to Sophia's money. Made me betray my own family." Marcus stepped closer to our table. "I want my money, Aston. Now." I don't have it," Aston stammered. "Then sign the papers," I said, pushing them toward him. "Walk away clean. Start fresh." His hand trembled as he reached for the pen. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is." I nodded to Shanice, who pressed send on her laptop. "Those emails you and Marcus exchanged about the scheme? They're now in the possession of every board member. Your reputation in the business world is finished." He scrawled his signature across each page, desperation replacing arrogance in his eyes. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "I learned from the best," I replied, standing up. "You always said business was about staying one step ahead." As I gathered the signed papers, Marcus grabbed Aston's arm. "We're going to have a private conversation about payment plans." "Sophia," Aston called as I headed for the door. "I'm sorry. I never meant—" "Save it," I cut him off. "You're only sorry you got caught. Goodbye, Aston." Outside, Jesse and Addison were waiting. "Did he sign?" Jesse asked. I handed him the papers. "Every page. How long until it's official?" "I'll file them today. By next week, you'll be free." Addison hugged me tight. "You did it, sis." My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Is it done?" I typed back, "Yes. Family dinner tonight?" Her response came immediately. "Of course. Your father's making his famous lasagna. Says he's never been prouder of you." Looking back through the cafe window, I watched as Aston withered under Marcus's quiet threats. Annalise caught my eye and mouthed, "Thank you," before slipping away. "Ready to go?" Addison asked. I took one last look at the cafe where my story with Aston had begun and where it had just ended. More than ready. It's time for a new chapter. As we walked away, I heard Aston's desperate voice floating through the open window, pleading with Marcus, but I didn't look back. Karma had finally caught up with him, and I had a family dinner to attend. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in, heels clicking against the polished floor. 12 pairs of eyes followed my movement to the head of the table, Aston's former seat. My seat now. "Good morning," I said, placing my laptop down. "Shall we begin?" Harold, the oldest board member, cleared his throat. "Ms. Sophia, given the unusual circumstances of your acquisition—" "You mean how I legally obtained controlling interest while my husband was busy planning to steal it through his mistress?" I smiled pleasantly. "Those circumstances?" Nervous laughter rippled around the table. Before Harold could respond, the door burst open. Aston stormed in, looking considerably less polished than usual. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "This meeting can't proceed," he announced. "I'm contesting the transfer of shares." I didn't even look up from my laptop. "Security, please escort Mr. Aston out." "You can't do this." He slammed his hands on the table. "These people need to know what kind of woman you really are." Now I did look up. "You mean the kind who caught her husband trying to embezzle company funds to pay off illegal gambling debts?" The room went deadly quiet. Aston's face turned purple. "That's right," I continued, pulling up documents on the projector screen. Let me show everyone exactly what kind of person I am, and more importantly, what kind of person you are. Spreadsheets filled the screen, detailed records of Aston's underground poker losses, followed by suspicious transfers from company accounts. I've already reported these discrepancies to the proper authorities, I announced. The company will cooperate fully with their investigation. You're lying, Aston sputtered, but his eyes told a different story. The boardroom door opened again. This time, 2 security guards entered, followed by Jessie and, to everyone's surprise, Annalise. Actually, Annalise said, her voice shaking slightly, she's not. I've already given my statement to the investigators about everything, the gambling, the theft, the plan to take over the company. Aston lunged toward her. You treacherous! The security guards caught him before he could reach her. As they dragged him toward the door, he shouted, Your fathers know better. Tell them about his dirty dealings. My father, I said calmly, has already disclosed his past irregularities to the board's ethics committee. Unlike you, he's taken responsibility for his actions. Harold stood up. I move to formally recognize Sophia as CEO and chairperson, effective immediately. Seconded, called out Maria, the youngest board member. I've seen enough. The vote was unanimous. As the security guards finally managed to remove Aston, his threats echoing down the hallway, I pulled up the next item on our agenda. Now, I said, let's discuss the company's future. 2 hours later, I stood in my new office, Aston's old office, staring out at the city skyline. Jessie entered with a stack of papers. The authorities want to interview you tomorrow about Aston's financial activities, he said, and Marcus has apparently skipped town. Good, I replied. One less problem to deal with. My phone rang. Addison. Sis, you need to turn on the news, right now. I grabbed the remote, switching on the office TV. There was Aston, being led out of his favorite underground poker club in handcuffs, along with several other players and the club owner. Anonymous tip, Jessie said with a small smile. Imagine that. Shanice burst into the office, waving her phone. Have you seen? It's everywhere. Social media is blowing up. How's Annalise holding up? I asked. Better, Shanice replied. She's in therapy, says she wants to make amends. The office door opened again. My parents this time. My father looked at the TV, then at me. I was wrong, he said simply. You handled this exactly right. My mother squeezed his hand. We both underestimated you, sweetheart. It won't happen again. Another news alert flashed across the screen. Local business tycoon arrested for fraud and illegal gambling. More arrests expected. You know, Jessie said, for someone who just took down her cheating husband, exposed a criminal gambling ring, and became CEO of a major company, you seem remarkably calm. I turned away from the TV, facing my family and friends, the people who had stood by me through everything. That's because for the first time in years, I feel completely in control, I said. No more pretending, no more compromising who I am. My phone buzzed with a text from Annalise. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I won't waste it. Looking around at my supporters, at the empire I'd protected, at the future I'd secured, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of my victory. Karma hadn't just helped me survive. She'd helped me thrive, and this was just the beginning. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived for Aston's arraignment. 3 months had passed since his arrest, and the media circus hadn't died down. Ms. Sophia, any comment on your ex-husband's plea deal? How does it feel to be the youngest female CEO in the industry? I walked past them, Addison and Jessie flanking me like bodyguards. Inside, the marble halls echoed with whispers as we made our way to courtroom 3. You don't have to be here, Addison whispered. The prosecutor can handle this. I want to see his face, I replied. I need to. The courtroom doors opened, and there he was, Aston, in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. Gone was the designer suit, the arrogant smile, the perfectly styled hair. He looked small. All rise, the bailiff called out. As the judge entered, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. Annalise slipped into the back row, wearing dark sunglasses despite being indoors. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave a slight nod. In the matter of the state versus Aston, the judge began. The proceedings moved quickly. The prosecutor outlined the charges: fraud, embezzlement, participation in illegal gambling operations. Aston's lawyer, a far cry from the prestigious firm he once used, looked defeated before he even spoke. Your Honor, my client wishes to change his plea to guilty on all counts. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Aston's shoulders slumped. Very well, the judge said. Mr. Aston, please rise. As Aston stood, he turned slightly, his eyes finding mine. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Before I accept your plea, the judge continued, do you wish to make a statement? Aston cleared his throat. I'd like to address my ex-wife. The judge nodded. I sat straighter as Aston faced me fully. Sophia, his voice cracked, you were right about everything. I thought I was smarter than everyone else. I thought I could take whatever I wanted. But you beat me at my own game. And the worst part is, you did it legally, perfectly. Everything I taught you about business, you used against me. Is there a point to this? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. I'm trying to say, I'm sorry, not just for the crimes, but for underestimating you, for betraying you, for thinking you were just a trophy wife who wouldn't fight back. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, while this is touching, we have a plea agreement to discuss. Indeed, the judge said. Mr. Aston, this court accepts your guilty plea. Based on the agreement reached with the prosecution, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in federal prison with an additional 3 years of supervised release. As the judge continued listing the terms, including restitution payments, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus's former poker dealer. Boss, you were right. Found the offshore accounts. Sending details now. I forwarded it to Jesse without looking at him. We'd discuss it later. The bang of the gavel brought my attention back to the proceedings. As the bailiff led Aston away, he tried one last time to catch my eye. I stared straight ahead. Outside, the reporters were waiting. This time, I stopped. Ms. Sophia, your response to your ex-husband's courtroom apology? I adjusted my blazer. Actions have consequences. Mr. Aston's actions destroyed our marriage, nearly destroyed our company, and ultimately destroyed his life. Let that be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can take advantage of others without repercussions. Back at the office, I found my parents waiting in my executive suite. My father held up a bottle of champagne. The board meeting went well? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Unanimous approval of your 5-year plan. He beamed. And the stock price is up 12% since the announcement of Aston's plea deal. My mother poured the champagne. To karma, she said, raising her glass. To justice, my father added. To both, I said, clinking glasses with them. My phone buzzed again. Annalise, thank you for not mentioning my involvement in court. I start my new job next week. Clean slate. I typed back. Make it count. Looking out my office window at the city skyline, I watched the sun setting on one chapter of my life and rising on another. The company was thriving. Aston was facing justice, and Earth to Sophia. Addison waved her hand in front of my face. Where'd you go just now? I smiled, turning back to my family. Just thinking about tomorrow. We have work to do. Because that's the thing about karma. She doesn't just deliver justice. Sometimes she delivers opportunities, and I was ready to seize every single one. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee and fresh pastries as I unlocked the door to my old cafe, our old cafe. The realtor had called yesterday with the news. The owners were selling, and I'd made the highest bid. "It's perfect," Shanice said, running her hand along the exposed brick wall. "But why this place?" "Because," I smiled, "sometimes the best revenge is living well." The vintage posters were faded. The mismatched chairs needed reupholstering, but the bones were good, just like mine had been, after Aston's betrayal. My phone buzzed, a text from Jesse. "Marcus found in Bali, local authorities picking him up now." "Good news?" Shanice asked, noting my expression. "The best kind. Justice keeps rolling in." The bell above the door chimed. Annalise walked in, looking different in jeans and a simple sweater, more like the cousin I remembered from childhood. "When you asked me to meet you here," she said, glancing around, "I almost didn't come." "But you did." I pulled out a chair. "Sit, we need to talk." She sat, fidgeting with her sleeve. "I heard about Marcus. The authorities found him," I finished. "He'll face charges, but that's not why I asked you here." I slid a folder across the table. She opened it, her eyes widening. "This is a business proposal?" "The cafe needs a manager," I said. "Someone who understands both business and redemption. Someone who needs a real fresh start." Tears welled in her eyes. "After everything I did." "The past is past," I interrupted. "What matters is what we do now." The door chimed again. My parents entered, followed by Addison and Jesse. "Well?" my father asked, looking around. "Is it official?" I held up the keys. "Just signed the papers this morning." My mother pulled out a small wrapped package. "Then you'll need this." Inside was a framed photo. Me at 16, working my first job as a barista, learning the value of hard work and independence. "Remember what you told me that summer?" my mother asked. "That someday you'd own your own cafe?" And now she owns an empire and a cafe. Addison grinned. Jesse cleared his throat. "Speaking of empire, the board approved your proposal to start a foundation helping women in business. They were particularly impressed with the mentorship program. A program I hope you'll help with," I said to Annalise. "Your experience could help others avoid similar mistakes." She wiped her eyes, nodding. "I'd like that." My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Former business tycoon begins prison sentence. Ex-wife's company reports record profits. "You know," Shanice said, reading over my shoulder, "for someone who lost everything, Aston sure helped you find yourself." "No," I corrected her. "I found myself. He just made the mistake of getting in my way." The afternoon light streamed through the windows, casting warm patterns on the floor. Outside, life moved at its usual hectic pace, but in here, time seemed to slow down. "To new beginnings," my father raised an imaginary glass. "And old wisdom," my mother added. "Actually," I said, moving behind the counter, "this old place still has a working espresso machine. Let me make us some real drinks to toast with." As I worked the familiar machinery, muscle memory taking over, I caught glimpses of my reflection in the chrome surface. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd once sat here, accepting Aston's first dinner invitation. She was stronger, wiser, more complete. I served the drinks, lattes with perfect foam hearts on top, just like I used to make, and raised my cup. "To Karma," I said, "who taught me that revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about rebuilding yourself." "To Family," Annalise added softly, "who gives second chances." "To Justice," Jesse raised his cup, served both hot and cold. We laughed, and in that moment I felt the last pieces click into place. The empire I'd protected would thrive. The cafe would become something new and beautiful, and the foundation would help other women find their strength. As for Aston, he was just another lesson learned, another chapter closed. The real story had always been about me, about finding my power, my voice, my path. The bell chimed again as new customers wandered in, drawn by the lights and warmth. I stood behind the counter where my journey had truly begun, ready to write the next chapter on my own terms. Because sometimes karma doesn't just balance the scales, she helps you build something better from the ashes of what was lost, and that's the sweetest revenge of all.